So, Adam Topol, good to meet you.
Hey, man, good to be here.
We've been hanging out. Kind of came unexpectedly.
Yeah. Dropped in
to the old shop here, and this is your first time to our shop in Illinois, but you've gone to New York shop for a while.
New York, and I went to the old location as well.
And then, we should start talking about maybe how you first found the shop. So we were kind of on that before there. Downtown Chicago, this would be 410 South Michigan Avenue. Yeah, what was your first experience at Maxwell Drums?
Well, it was a trip. So going way back, like, I should even go back further and say, like, pre-internet, pre-eBay mania, pre all this stuff, you know. I've been drumming for a long time, and, like, we all liked old drums. I went to Berkeley, like, a long time ago. And everybody loved the old drums, but because there was no internet and none of us were like collectors, I mean, Craigslist wasn't really a thing. You'd see these things come through, but they were like exotic. Mostly like what we had access to was like just the stuff that was in like Guitar Center, we were in Boston, so there was like was that drum shop in Boston?
So this is during your like college years?
Yeah. I'm
Where'd
predating.
you grow up?
Lake Tahoe, California.
Okay, cool. So you're from California.
Yeah, California. But I just at Berkeley, because the whole reason I found Maxwell's was because it was specialized in vintage drums.
Sure.
And it curated vintage drums, and you guys were at least to my knowledge, the first place that did that.
So did you go to the New York shop first, or was it the Chicago shop first?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it could be either one.
I don't remember because like there was I'm still touring now. I play drums and percussion with Jack Johnson.
You play a lot for those listening, yeah.
I do. Yeah, I love it. You know, I play with other artists as well, but this is probably the busiest project I get to do, and
yeah,
probably has the biggest reach, I suppose. But I get around with other stuff as well. But I remember pre-Maxwell's, you know, there was just nothing much to see, you know, like one Guitar Center looks like another Guitar Center, looks like another Guitar Center. So the only time we would go to a music shop, if we ever had a day off back then, which we usually didn't, we worked hard, was like, I need a new drum head, my pedal broke, blah, blah, blah. You'd go to a Guitar Center, whatever, and I always found...
Was there Boston Drum Shop? Was there a...
Oh, yeah, there was one. It was called... I forget the name of it, but when I was at Berkeley, there was a cool drum shop. And it was right around the corner from Berkeley. Those guys were great. Yeah. And then there was like a kind of a chain store. Sure. But nobody did vintage drums, and I didn't know it was a thing. I just remember a couple drummers at Berkeley would cruise in the little practice rooms, and they have an old kit. We'd like, where did you get that? And there'd be like this story, like... Well, I met this guy, and he had a few things in his garage, and he decided to do me a favor and part with this thing, and we just couldn't believe it. You know, we would only see the old drum sets in, like, the books, you know, like the films or whatever. So it was more just like a thing that you would bump into and sort of marvel at, and we'd just get newer stuff.
Yeah, the vintage stuff. Some people collect it, and then some people they want it for the sound. It's really cool in so many. And then the history, because the drum set was invented in America. It's a kind of came from many different cultures, percussive instruments all combining into the Traps kit. You know.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. We got Noah here too, by the way.
Yeah, man.
Noah's hanging with us.
Yeah, I'm so psyched.
The moderator.
The moderator.
Yeah. He's like, whoa, no, that's fact checker.
Yeah, sitting
incorrect.
At the end of the table.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you having fun?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been following your music, Adam, for quite a while, mostly with Jack's music.
Thank you so much.
I definitely have some questions for you, and we'll get there.
Oh yeah, cool.
But,
we should talk about maybe chronologically. So like we were talking about older kits. Like what was your first kit? Do you like and how'd you get into drumming originally?
Okay, I'll tell you all that stuff. But first, I got to say, so the Maxwell thing, it was honestly like a thing that I heard about on the West Coast through touring drummers. Like there's this shop in Chicago, and they have just stacks of old kits.
The word was out.
The word was out. You know, one of my touring friends, my buddy Pete, and he, great drummer, and he would just he was the first one to really on like.
What's his last name?
McNeil.
Pete McNeil. I wonder if I know him.
Yeah, it's a long story. We could go there later. It's
Okay.
intense. But he's a fabulous drummer and knew about Gretches and taught me about a lot of vintage drums and stuff like that. And he was the one that told me about the shop. And I was just like, one day I'm going to go to Chicago and I'm going to go to this place. I don't know what it is. And
Nice.
so, but I think I actually I probably wound up in the New York store first.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And-
that's interesting.
Yeah, and this was sort of at a nascent.
Maybe around when it was first started, probably.
Yeah, because I don't know. There's been a few different locations or
Like 10 or
iterations.
15 years ago from
Could have been,
today. Yeah.
but I was going there and it was rad because I was like, you just see like I remember seeing a WFL kit that was orange, like something crazy that I should have bought it at that very minute. But I was like, it was pretty early in the touring days and.
Yeah.
The music business is really volatile, and you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. You're like, oh, I could buy this, but then
I don't know how you
gotta
guys
make
do
rent.
it.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Do you do a lot of teaching, or do you just play exclusively?
that's a whole crazy thing too.
Sure.
But okay, so I'll get into that because there's how do I start and
Sometimes
how,
I
do-
jump
how do I
around
make
a lot.
rent?
If you
No,
wanna
it's
stay on
totally
a
cool.
topic, feel free
no,
to-
I'm going to stow those.
I get derailed
But
easily.
then so we
No, I was laughing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay though.
so like then what happened was you guys would have and there's a like pro drum shop which is great in Hollywood and Stan and Jerry and
Yeah, I know that place. I've never been there, but I've always wanted to go. I've seen like pictures.
They're incredible.
We get all the old drum shops that have been around for a long time. A lot of them used to put stickers on drums, so we'll get those periodically and on
Yeah.
heads. You know.
they're amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing. But anyway, but they didn't have like 17 20 to 22 inch A
Sure.
rides with various shades of being beat up and cool with flea bites and cracks and stuff. You guys did. So it was like the one time I could go in this room and just try all these old cymbals and be like, whoa. I mean,
Right.
as great as all the new stuff is, like, I feel like, I wonder if like the alloys, the metals, the compounds, the old wood with the old trees and the old sap and all that stuff somehow or another just has some kind of sound that no
Yeah.
disrespect to the new great drum makers, which all have their place. The old stuff just has a vibe, you know, that
Definitely.
you can't.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is just it's a little bit less perfect, the old stuff. It's like it has all these little imperfections, which means each drum will kind of have like a little bit of a quirkiness to it. So that maybe is that what?
that.
Yeah.
That. So I think to my knowledge, and I don't know, but like I think you were the first people that really curated that stuff, and we all started with like being really curious about round badge kits,
Yeah.
specifically. So it was that, and then from there, every time I went to New York,
The Chicago shop, I remember when I went to college down there, and I remember a time, we should all make sure to put our mics real close just
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're being, our neighbors are being noisy.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Cool,
yeah,
cool.
they'll pick you up, but yeah, closer the better. But yeah, let's see, what was it? There was a time when you would go into the Chicago shop and there would be like 10 round badge kits in a row.
Yeah.
All just, there was a postcard that we had made that has that picture, and we have one of them somewhere, but
Yeah.
you probably saw that at one point in New York too. You'd have like a row of round badge kits.
Probably,
Don't see that anymore.
Probably so. And I don't know how you guys did it, because again, we had like pre-internet, pre-Craigslist. We had this thing called the Recycler, which you guys are both young, so you don't know, but you would just buy used stuff off of these just local classifieds. So
Yeah,
we just
I'm old enough to remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm
we
not.
just
A little bit of
yeah, you're not.
pre-internet. No, it's
So
about,
we didn't
yeah.
have access to that. So like any stuff you'd get would be either you were in the know or it would just be luck and happenstance. So
Sure.
when shops like yours started moving away from maybe stocking the new products and you guys would somehow find these things,
Yeah.
it was a big win for us. And then a bunch of other stores kind of jumped in and did it too. And now there's a lot of regional places.
I think it's great. I think the more people that appreciate these instruments, the better.
Yeah.
There's not enough people that so open more shops. Everyone should open drum shops.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's how you save more vintage drums from a
The wrecking ball,
uncertain
yeah.
future.
Yeah.
So it's good to have all these shops in every
The
city.
landfill.
Well,
Plus
right.
You can direct people to these shops when they're not local to you, and it's really nice to be able to support each other. So,
Well,
and people do it to us too.
I mean, I get a lot of these old drums. I drive my wife crazy. No, she's cool about it, you know. But I'll get a lot of these drums, and they're great, but they're they're beat up. You know, somebody inevitably took the bottom heads off
Sure.
at one point, and are stacked and nested them in each other, and they was
Yeah.
like, what did I get? I got a Gretsch round badge, 2012-14 anniversary sparkle.
Okay.
I found it at this quirky music store in LA,
Sure.
and it was beat up. Like somebody painted the hoops black. Somebody nested the drums in each other. The bearing edges were chewed up. I mean, it was like, it hurt.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, I don't know what. But then there's a guy named Chris Hewer.
Oh, did you like have the edges redone and stuff like that?
I did, which is sacrilegious.
Yeah, it's all right.
you know.
Sometimes.
But this guy Chris Hewer.
Sometimes they're
like-
really bad. So.
Oh yeah,
Sometimes
these
you gotta
these
do it.
these things were just abused, you know. So he has the factory specs to all the different drums during the eras. I mean, he's fantastic in L.A. Chris Hewer, and Chris buffed out. There were stickers on him. Somebody like imagine that, an old Gretsch like Art Blakey vibe kit. Someone puts stickers on it,
Sure.
takes the bottom heads off, paints the hoops black.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was in like a punk band at some point, and yeah.
There's something in this whole thing. You know.
I've seen them painted, all kinds of, and then imagine all the rare reps that have been been pulled off the drums.
Oh God, don't even get me started. So Chris fixed him up and buffed him up. So yeah, they've been saved from that. And then I've gotten some kits and restored them and liked them, but like you can only have so many drums, and so you sell them and you revive them, and you let them back out in the world, you know. And so there's so many drums, and a lot of them I've gotten in your shop. Some of them Craigslist, some of them eBay and stuff. So it's like a fun pastime. So that's how I got into what you guys were doing.
Sure. What do you plan when you tour?
Well, I'm a Yamaha artist.
Yamaha, nice.
So and I have
They've got
been.
a cool formula. I like their. They have like that. The thing that they really seem to be proud of is that the plies are at an angle, and then so it's a very strong shell. I think they're the only company that does that.
Cross lamination.
Cross laminated, yeah, and then
Yeah.
at that angle. So if you look inside it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a really cool history, and like early on.
Oh, we have a cool drum. Did you know? Rogers R360s were manufactured by Yamaha.
Oh, that's right. Probably the Sakai or whatever, the Osaka people. I don't know, but
Well, yeah.
oh
yeah.
no, they
All the
owned
way back
Rogers.
then.
Like I should
So
say
yeah, so I don't know why it happened. Maybe I'm not sure why, but yeah, they are definitely Yamaha shells. I did a video with actually it just sold, didn't it?
Does it sound cool?
Oh, it didn't
No.
sell. We thought we sold it.
Yeah.
They sound
Close,
good.
so
yeah.
close.
They sound better than most of the import stuff because a lot of that import stuff it's really really inexpensive wood, but these
yeah.
are like it's cool because they're like really early Yamaha shells. And they have the characteristics of a modern shell, so that's like right when they invented. Their,
Oh, I
their
can't
process.
wait.
What kind of finishes does your kit have that you're?
Well, let's see.
Maybe a lacquer.
No, you know what I did?
I love
Because
their
back,
fade, their lacquer.
yeah, they
sunburst.
make a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
They're actually, I think the shells they make them now in China, and we got to pre-China we got to go when we were in Osaka doing a gig. Me and my cohort Josh Arroyo, he used to tech, now he does COVID security, but
Okay.
we went and they built us we went to Sakai, they built us snare drums.
Yeah.
And we got to see the whole process. So it was fun seeing that whole tradition there. And then I guess they cut ties with Sakai. And now the drums are made in China. And I went to the showroom recently and I tried a lot of their newer line, and they're great.
Yeah.
It sounds great. And now they're doing the recording customs and all the drums in like 20 by 14 and 22 by 14. I think that you can sneak one in the thinner sizes, which is great because I like the traditional
Yeah.
sizes.
Well, what's your setup? Your kind of primary setup for
Well,
working.
honestly, like because I like vintage stuff, but because I'm connected with Yamaha and Daryl and Greg and all those great people, I bought a couple of D20s and D22s. So for those of you that don't know or aren't nerds like me, Yamaha, there's like, I don't know what year they're made, but it has a silver interior like Gretsch.
Okay.
I think they were aspiring to kind of emulate like the Gretsch people. So
Sure.
literally they have
Silver
incredible,
sealer. Yeah.
they have like the wrap. You probably haven't had any D20s or D22s in here, but
Those are Yamahas.
Yamaha,
Oh, yeah. I don't
yeah.
even know what they are.
We had two actually in the
Oh, we
last
do?
few months. We had a blue oyster looking one, and then that walnut one was a D20 as well.
Okay, I do know what you're talking about. Then.
Yeah.
They're fantastic kits.
they're
yeah.
super cool. Yeah, I mean, no backs me
Oh,
up.
so yeah, those shell. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. 'Cause,
Shells
yeah,
are-
the R360 was painted too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Same
And
shell.
so honestly, they got vibe, like a lot of vibe.
yeah.
And so I found a couple. There's a guy named Adrian, my friend Adrian from Texas, who collects vintage Yamahas. He still got some, but he had like whole slew of these D20s and D22s in every single finish. He really, he's a real devotee. And they have a special sound, almost like I got a 22, 13, 16 that almost sounds like some Radio Kings or something.
Yeah.
And they're incredible. So I'll use those, and it's in a kind of a black oyster, wacky finish.
Sure.
I like drums with inlays and wraps, you know. And so
Wraps are nice for not getting them damaged. Yeah, they're the toughest to.
it just looks cool. I hate to say it, you
Are,
know.
are you a sparkle? You like the sparkles or more?
I'll sparkle it.
more the-
I'll do whatever,
Sure,
you know.
yeah.
I mean, I'll do whatever. I just like the classic thing. But so I have
Yeah.
a set of D20s one set I got off eBay, and it was really cool. So I think like a Pentecostal drummer owned them on eBay. So there were some scriptures written on the heads, and they were
I've
dusty.
seen that before, sure.
Yeah, and I
Your set
cleaned them
list,
up. And I think some biblical stuff, and cleaned them up, and they sound cool, and they're just a little off-center cool. It's not the standard thing.
Yeah, like modern drums. Sometimes I say they're just like they're too perfect. Some of them they're so incredibly resonant.
Right.
And
right.
they sound fantastic, and it kind of depends on what tool you're using. But the old ones, sometimes I find you can just set them up in the studio, and they're almost a little bit more mellow or like less resonant. You don't have to muffle them as much.
Yeah.
That's just what I find.
Yeah. Exactly.
Sound good, a little more open.
And then sometimes you got to have things that function. So, let's say if you're touring, your drums are sitting in a truck for 2 days.
Sure.
And then they set the stuff up in the morning on a stage, and it's hot or it's freezing.
Oh yeah.
And it's outside, and you're doing a festival and stuff, and then you have something that's really fragile when you get out there in front of all those people. Aside from being like, if you get nervous or try to figure things out, your drums all of a sudden sound like boxes. And so in some cases, things
Sure.
have to be really reliable. So the snare, oftentimes I'll get a newer snare, like a modern snare, because they sound good, and you can hit them, and they don't, like a lot of the older strainers, I feel like
Oh, they'll pop right off
they
sometimes.
pop
yeah.
off or they get loose.
Leadies are the worst.
Yeah.
They're some of the finest drums ever made. They look like they were made yesterday, 100
Right.
years old. But you hit that thing hard enough, it'll
It's always a
pop right
ticking
off.
time bomb with those things.
Plus, it has stick
especially
chopper
playing live.
hoops, so you'll go through about a pair of sticks every night if you're playing.
all that. And then you think
Backbeats.
about, like, if you're on a stage and there's subs and there's giant speakers and there's monitors and it's loud, and
Right.
then I'll inevitably get the butt end of my stick for a backbeat and do maybe the occasional full body flam, not many. And then all of a sudden, if you don't have things that stay in tune,
Sure.
or strainers that stay, or strainers that loosen, it just gets messed up. So sometimes it's just like a balance, if you're working and stuff. Do you use older stuff or newer stuff?
Typically older right now. I think just about everything I
Yeah.
have is older. Yeah.
Talk about your kits, Noah. You
Yeah,
got some
dude.
really cool stuff.
You mentioned Gretsch Round Badge and Satin Flames. That's what mine is, and it's you're absolutely right. Those finishes are probably the most prone to damage. So mine is a player as it gets, and I recut the edges on it too. So it's You do what you do to get it back in working order again, but I love those drums.
Moonglow,
Exactly.
right?
Fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
Moonglow.
Moonglow Satin Flame. That's
Exactly.
a cool one.
Dude,
Noah's
and it's like
favorite.
pieces of art, you know? It's like, man, life is so hard, you know? And if you can find a few little things that give you joy,
Yeah.
that are cool to check out and look at, and it's not a computer screen, no disrespect to
Oh, absolutely.
to the streaming platforms and the social media platforms.
But you're
like-
hearing us through it right now.
Yeah,
so-
which you are. So like I'm not at odds with it, but like for my mind, whether someone's playing a guitar, a bass, or a keyboard, or they're trying to vocalize or something, they're putting their hands on physical matter and trying to get a sound from it. And I don't want to like be in any kind of high horse at all, but I do think the practice of trying to get notes out of a thing is a pretty great departure, you know.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, it's and just kind of such a great activity. Yeah, you got to find things in life that make you happy, and music in general. It's just a great people should play less video games, play more music.
I think, and for me, I mean, I get sucked in. I got one of those little apps like your screen time is up 2,000% this week. So like I'm not. I mean, trust me. Like my wife will get on me. She's like, you're always on your phone.
Yeah.
But part
I
of
get
it,
YouTube. it's like channel flipping. I'll just like go like, it's like
dude, you see a cat trying to get a fish frozen in ice, and then you'll
have to
see
watch this.
Mo Tucker from the Velvet Underground and how she played every exact beat with someone analyzing it into some rare Ed Blackwell footage into someone you haven't seen for 30 years trying to say hi, and you're just like, oh.
right.
So it's a challenge, but back to what you guys did. It was a cool place for me to go and just a feel good kind of thing.
So you probably met Jess way early on.
Yep. Hayden, Jess, a lot
I
of
keep
those.
saying one of these days I'm going to get Jess on a podcast, but it hasn't
Dude,
happened
he'd be
yet, but-
crazy.
Yeah, I
But
would
Jess
love to have
Confidential, I bet you, with all us Maniac drummers, he's got some stories. I mean, think of the caliber, like and the masters that have come through your shop, the Jordans of the world, and all the great jazz figures that come in. I mean, dude, it's just, I'll go to Stan and the Pro Drum and just hang out there. Mm-hmm. And it's in Hollywood. It's on Vine Street, a really gritty.
Have you seen this shop before, Noah?
Pro Drum?
They've been around for a long time.
Oh, it's an
They
institution.
were around when Frank's was around.
I haven't been there, but
Yeah.
I've definitely heard of them.
No,
And
no,
they
that's-
have one of Buddy Rich's kits there, I think.
Yeah.
A
No,
white
it's
ring
ridiculous.
pearl.
They have Gene Krupa's drum throne, and it's like the perfect. Like I think he sawed off a canister throne and made
Was
it.
he
the
short or he
perfect
wasn't
height.
too tall?
I don't know, but I sat on this thing and I'm like, please let me have this. Let me take this. Stan's like, nope. So I mean, you can go there and you see the really cool working drummers, or you see some people coming in off the street that are a little wacky, or you'll see Marvin Smitty Smith, or you'll see James Gadsden wander in there. And
Is it like close to the strip? Is it?
It is, and it's right across from what used to be the Union building.
So, I've never been to Hollywood. The only place I've ever been near where you live is the NAMM show, which was in
Anaheim.
Yeah. So I've been there, and that's the
dude,
closest.
That ain't, yeah, that's a, well, no disrespect to the NAMM show. It gives people joy, but that's,
Sure.
it's a hectic.
Oh, it was.
It's a hectic.
I actually, yeah. When I was there, I got sick, so I spent the entire time trying not to. It wasn't the most fun because I got like a summer cold essentially.
Oh, yeah.
So I was just like snoring really. Me and my
Oh.
dad had one room.
Oh,
And
no.
so yeah, so if I go again, but yeah, I don't know if we're gonna go to too many more NAMM shows. I actually had really fun though. I loved the food trucks.
Have you been to the NAMM yet? Have you NAMMed it?
I haven't named it.
Dude, it is
It's loud.
wild. Okay, first off, it's loud.
Really loud.
Second
I always
off,
see them walking around with the noise meters, the decibel meters there.
Me and you should go. Just
oh
me
no,
and you.
no, you have to go for the sheer spectacle. Like I went,
Okay.
I walked in, I'm like, dude, there's Yngwie, the metal guitar god. There's Yngwie, and then there's these girls that are practically topless, and then there
Sure.
are like some kids that are like awestruck at all these instruments and just like
Yeah.
really wild about it. And then there's like Steve Ferroni burrowing through the crowd, and then there's all this gear and all these booths, and then you're rubbing elbows with people you haven't seen in years, and it's just super frantic. So I haven't NAMMed it in a couple of years.
It's even louder than the Chicago Drum Show. But it is kind of cool. I always liked going to the piano room. I like the piano, seeing all the grand pianos.
Oh, you
That
play
was
piano
amazing.
too?
Yeah, I play piano.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And yeah, it was that was my favorite part actually.
Yeah.
We used to have we'd always have a Cravietto booth, and then I spent some time in the DW booth. That was cool.
Those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
They help me with hardware.
DW? Oh, okay, nice. I mean, yeah, they do a fantastic job, and they're doing a lot for the kind of historic stuff. 'Cause someday we'll get a Slingerland again. Someday.
Yeah.
They own it, so yeah, they're gonna do
Yeah.
something with it.
Yeah, I just picked up a 20-inch Radio King with the old Radio Kings, not the ones
Sure.
not the Krupa whatever ones. What do you call the older ones with the what kind of lugs? The beaver tail or what do you call those?
Streamline lugs.
Streamline. You never see a 20.
There's a
I
term
don't-
that
I heard beaver tail, and I was like, yeah, beaver tail. And then you said streamline. I was like, no,
So
I haven't
the-
heard of that.
yeah I think
I don't know the
sometimes people
word.
call them beaver tail, but the ones you're talking about are the ones that they almost also look a little bit like a clamshell almost.
That.
They're-
That.
yeah.
That bit.
And then
I
I
found a
think
20.
streamline is the official term.
Okay,
for
Streamline.
those.
Nice. Okay. I found that, and so I now have a 2012, 14 Radio King with those lugs on them.
Cool.
Yeah.
2012, 14.
20. I found
20,
it,
yeah.
I found a 20. Yeah.
That's pretty rare. Yeah, that would be like one of the first 20s ever made, I think. Yeah,
Don't know.
and
But
it's got the those would be probably mahogany, poplar mahogany with those big reinforcement hoops.
yeah, no, I freaked out. I
Very
freaked out when I
cool.
found this. Well, the floor tom is probably a tom, like, they had the two giant tom-toms on the, I don't think it was meant to be a floor tom.
Okay.
But anyway, when I get back home, I'm so psyched.
You just picked this one up?
Yeah.
Where'd you get it?
New York.
Oh, it's from us.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good deal. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the Slingerland stuff is great. They were a great company. One of the things I really like about the vintage American drum companies, it's kind of like each company had their own really specific formula.
Right.
And a lot of the times they stuck to it. Gretsch was the most. They were like, I think, the most conservative company. They would never change anything.
Right.
But they stuck to what they did well. And yeah, you got Slingerland, like stick saver hoops, single ply snare drums. And then you got Ludwig. I always think of like metal snare drums. That's something they really have always done well.
Yeah.
You got Rogers, which was like super innovative in hardware. And sharper
Incredible.
bearing edge. They did that pretty much before anyone else.
Incredible.
And then Gretsch, if you like the Gretsch sound, an interesting thing, the toms don't have vent holes. That's a thing about old 60s Gretsch drums that
never thought
no one
about
ever
that.
talks about that.
I never thought about
It makes
that.
a difference. It's a huge difference.
In a good way or in a weird way?
Well, you can't do it on a snare drum. You need a vent hole in a snare drum.
Yeah, the snares. I had
It-
trouble
it
with the
won't
snare drums.
respond.
Okay.
But their snares had vent holes. So,
Okay.
So yeah, and the Gretsch snares, they always sound kind of boxy.
Right.
But yeah, for a tom, you can get away without having a vent hole, and I think it just makes it a little more kind of tubby and a little more quiet, a little more like I can actually show you. I got a Cravietto kit, the one that's built out as a Maxwell, that actually doesn't have vent holes on the toms, and it just makes it a little more mellow. The air just doesn't get pushed out quite
Wow.
the same. So
Wow.
yeah, the little Chinese toms, what those sound like?
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ones
yeah.
that you were on the old kits,
Right.
A little more similar to that.
Right.
Those
Oh,
don't have
dude.
vent holes, I don't think. Yeah.
Whoa. But they didn't have lugs. Are you talking about the
Yeah, those are tack head.
the
yeah.
tack heads? Yeah. No, that's.
I mean,
crazy.
that's where toms kind of come from. And if you look at early toms, they slowly evolved. Like that is the evolution right there. You got
Wow.
the tack head on the bottom, and then,
Oh wow.
And if you look at the bearing edge on that drum, it's incredibly round.
Oh wow.
And that so
Yeah.
they evolved slowly. Toms are so important now to drumming too. Back in it was much more snare and bass driven, in
Right.
the first half of the last century, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, let's talk more about you and
Okay.
like, so back to like when you first started music. Tell me a little about like your family and like all that
Okay,
fun
so I'm from Lake Tahoe, California. Really sleepy blue collar town in the mountains. We're on the California side.
stuff. Okay.
It was a really cool scene. Like, we didn't get I mean, you're from Chicago, right?
Yeah.
And you're from Chicago, right?
Half and half.
Half and half. So
here,
wait, you're
here in Texas,
okay here
yeah,
in
no,
Texas.
it's cool. You got
So wait, Houston, Austin.
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 mostly.
Okay, so Austin. The bomb. So you guys probably had more exposure to a lot of musical acts coming in town. You know, we didn't have much, but drumming is such a cool thing because you were talking about the Chinese tom-tom and the fact that it's sort of an American, the trap set is sort of a thing that kind of came up in the United States.
Sure.
And it's a thing that's put together. It has an architecture to it. It doesn't have a certain number of frets or keys or strings or whatever.
Yeah.
It's according to what the person feels like bringing that day or not,
Right,
or
yeah.
how they tension it or what they decide to do or to not do. So it's performance, but there's some architecture to it too. So as a little guy, you see even in Lake Tahoe, where other than at the casinos once in a while, there was no way we would see the Buddy Rich Band or anything. We didn't get things like that. It was a ski destination.
Sure.
But you'd go to the bars and the lodges, and there'd be a lounge band or a lodge band. And I look at that now, and I'm thinking, they're probably, I'll still do gigs like that, but I'll think of it more in professional terms, like, I wonder if they get fed that day, or, is it just band discount, or where do they load their, I think of it in different terms.
I'll play for free beer.
Right on, man.
as long as I get to play some fun jazz, I'll play for beer.
Yeah, and that's a great attitude, and that's what music's about, in my opinion. But anyway, when you're a little guy, you can even go to a restaurant, like a little pub for skiers, and there's a band set up and playing, and somebody's setting up a drum set. And sometimes if you're inclined to drumming, you see that, and it's like magical. I'm like, wait, he's setting the bass drum on the ground. He's mounting a tom-tom on it, and what are those cymbals that smash together with his, it just blew me away. And I think certain people,
a sense of wonder there.
Yeah, you see it, and the other thing is
do you remember that? Do you remember
vividly?
And just
Vividly seeing a drummer setting a drum set up and immediately being like, that is the best thing ever.
That's great.
And then, of course, the incredible rock band known as Kiss came out, and it was game over, you know? I mean, I know, this is, I have an appreciation for a wide variety of music, but when you're, 6, the mind is such a different thing, you're just into, it's just beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but if you just see, some kind of spectacle and people are playing musical instruments, and it's just really captivating and interesting. And,
yeah, with my kids, the look on their eyes when they get really interested in something that's not some silly TV show, something that has some real artistic content, it's so incredible.
It's
how old were you, you think, when you saw your first kit and when you started bothering your parents?
6, 7 and something, and then my dad is just super. He used to play tenor sax too, so he's really
musical family, yeah.
A bit, yeah. I mean, he should have stayed with it because he naturally had it, Brooklyn, Sheepshead Bay, he was definitely. So as soon as he could,
tenor player or alto or
tenor. So as soon as he could, James Brown, Jerry Mulligan, Miles Davis. First gig that he took us to, he was like, "You got to hear these guys," and it was Santana. So then you see people playing congas and you see people playing timbales, and it was in a casino, and so it's a magical process. So then the second thing that's beautiful is that it's a medium for most people that requires them to interact with other humans, right?
Yeah.
And leave their own space, their own group, and so you look at Santana. And all of a sudden, I see a lot of different people, a lot of different faces connecting together to make music for a demographic that certainly wasn't like an Oakland or Bay Area crew.
Sure.
These were people from Reno and Tahoe. But everyone was into it, and everyone was together, and they were sharing in this thing.
Right.
And so back to being a little kid and maybe starting with Kiss, but then you get into Cat Stevens. Oh, that's a mellower thing. And then slowly you ease into a Santana or a thing, and then maybe easing into the 80s, like Branford Marsalis. We didn't know about jazz, but I remember Branford, he was like the guy. And so I remember we bought Royal Garden Blues. And then that led us.
One of his records over there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Where I would not have known about Coltrane or Charlie Parker or Monk or Lester Young, or Kenny Burrell or any of these people that I love now.
What about an early teacher? You want to do a shout out for maybe someone who had an influence on you early on?
Probably more like a public apology to a long list of teachers, you know?
I'm sorry I didn't practice.
I mean, did you guys practice?
Yeah.
I mean, were you guys practicers? I mean, please.
I remember
try.
I remember almost I was having, when you're a kid and you're trying to juggle your life, and I remember one time I was like basically in tears because I was supposed to practice and I didn't practice.
Aww.
There was snare drum etudes, those,
Yeah, which
those are you can't fake that.
You cannot fake that, and I kicked myself for not getting into that earlier. I just wasn't ready.
There's a book that I was preparing for college auditions. Yeah, and I remember going to my lesson and I hadn't practiced at all, and I was just like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? Should I pretend I'm sick? I know I did that last week.
Oh.
It was. So yeah, but were you a big practicer when you were?
But good for you. Like the fact that that was even on your radar at
Sure.
that age. I mean, at my age in college, it was like, I still owned a skateboard.
I was big into skateboarding.
Yeah. We were surfing and
Yeah, in
doing
California, you
various
can-
recreational activities that probably shouldn't have happened at that point. So
Sure.
snare drum etudes, like I wish, like we would look at the marching band and think like, that seems a little too stiff or whatever. But
It's square. Yeah.
now, like, I wish I would have done all that stuff because you take all that.
Hey, you seem to be doing all right.
Facility. Well, now, so luckily, like you come to things when you come to them, but
They're cool, but they
could
get
that
a little
whole
extreme.
contempt-
Some of those.
yeah, but
Yeah.
the whole contempt prior to investigation thing, like
Sure.
music is good thing to wear that down, because like I think that was good too, because like if I came up as more of a rock kid, like I went to a boarding school, so in Santa Barbara, it wasn't like it was kind of bad, but it was more like it was a good school in Tahoe.
Did you have music there? Was it a?
Well, we had
like
a
a
jazz
band or
band,
something?
but it was more like wasn't. Well, it could have been serious, but none of us were like. Again, you talk about snare drum etudes, and I mean, Noah? Were you like taking
guess
drumming
I'm-
seriously?
It's one of my biggest regrets is I got into drumming when I was already burnt out of practicing. So right junior high-ish and everything, I was like vehemently against going to school for it or taking lessons. I took lessons like once or twice and I just wouldn't practice. That's not the case now anymore, but I had been golfing my entire life leading up
golfing?
to that. Yeah, so I was
that's
practicing like all day and I was done.
I can say something about that though.
I just wanted to hit some
so the
drums.
burnout, the whole discipline.
There's a thing about classically trained, right? So they teach you all the rules, and they teach you what's the right thing to do. But then they also kind of teach you what you're not supposed to do.
Right.
So sometimes, like Noah's a great example. Like he plays some really cool stuff that like I never would have thought to play, but then he kind of just made it up. It just came from Noah. Yeah.
Well, okay, so then that opens up a whole other creative discussion: the autodidact versus somebody that's gotten a pedagogy of like
Sure.
And I kind of dabbled in both. But here's the heavy thing: at least for me, in the genre that I work in a lot, the best people, the best guys and girls that I've tended to work with were like just did other things and just picked up an instrument and within their own imagination sort of I'm sure they got a Beatles songbook and got the chords together. You have to
Sure.
do that. But they certainly didn't put the guitar on the left knee with the footrest and get their hand position perfect.
Sure.
They just kind of learned some songs in their bedroom and wrote things. Now, of course, that's different than if you're a symphonic artist or maybe you're studying the traditions of like the jazz masters or classical. Yeah. But so much powerful music got made, in the street.
Yeah. Like virtuosity is one of the. It's maybe a little bit of what we're talking about. Yeah.
Sure, and there's so many different kinds too.
Sure.
And so you're talking about the rules. Like one of the hardest things, biggest problems I had, and maybe at Berklee, was that there was this notion of what is good,
sure, yeah,
laudable, and this notion
dogmatic, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and this notion of what isn't good, and and I'm not saying it's bad, like to play anywhere within the same universe as an Art Blakey type or a Paul Motion type or a Philly Joe type. Those guys were incredibly expressive and beautiful, and they swung, but they could all read and play, and they had dynamics. So nobody can dispute that. And I think I can't imagine somebody could do those things unless they did the homework. So of course there's that.
So what years were you at Berkeley?
I left in '95. I was there for a couple of years. I went to Berkeley for 2 years, and I dropped out and studied with Alan Dawson.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but I also had a foot into the world music scene and the reggae scene. And
we were talking about that the other day.
Like punk rock music and all this other stuff.
Afro-Cuban stuff. We were talking about some.
Yeah, and then I
conga.
started going to Cuba, Havana.
Oh, you've been to
Matanzas,
Cuba?
Yeah, no,
Oh,
I
that's
studied
cool.
out
I'm
there.
jealous.
deeply. Oh, you guys should totally go.
Is it easy to travel there these days? It's probably not.
I think if you can,
Easier than maybe 20 years ago, though.
I think if I don't know what the laws are, but I think if you can present a reason to go for humanitarian
Don't bring any
reasons,
cigars back.
I think they'll let you bring a few. I don't know what the rules are, but
I don't think I've ever smoked a Cuban cigar.
You haven't?
I haven't. I'd love to.
dude.
Yeah.
Don't let me get you started. Cohiba is so good, man.
Yeah. My buddy Boomer, he's like a cigar aficionado. He always gets like the Honduras ones.
He hasn't hooked. Oh, you had a Honduras one though?
Yeah, those are supposed to be pretty good too. Yeah.
Honduras, Nika.
That's our thing now. me and Boomer. He's a cymbal guy. Cymbal fanatic.
Really?
Boomer.
Oh, I gotta talk to him, man.
He's around.
He's got a great ear for like you can hit any part of the cymbal and he'll really just diagnose.
He always
everything that
consigns
needs
his
to be
stuff in
done.
New York, so who knows?
Boomer, come here. I need some
Yeah.
hi-hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He hammers too. He does some hammering. I'll lathe for him. He'll hammer a little bit.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, send me those hi-hats.
Yeah, right.
We were talking earlier about lathing, and maybe I'll do some hi-hats for you.
Dude, I would love it. I've got some old thick ones that are clunky that I bet you could make awesome.
Sure. And I can always just lathe on the inside so that it doesn't affect the logo or anything. So
I don't mind. I like things that look weird.
Sure.
Yeah.
Where do those come from?
Yeah, no, the mystical stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But it was cool, like coming here. I think you guys kind of started or at least you were the first ones. It's hard to say started, began, ended, but I mean, I feel like a lot of shops popped up that kind of had that same respect that you guys had for curating the older stuff. You know, I'm really good friends with Revival Drum Shop, with Jose and his crew. And
Yeah, I have
Jose.
his record.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic
really good.
improviser. He's a
I'll
beautiful
put it
drummer.
on later if you want to listen to it.
I
Yeah,
would love that.
It's
I would love it.
fantastic. Yeah, I'll
Is
put
that
on the big
one he did,
speakers
the
too.
John Fahey release that he did with M. Ward and stuff? He's had a few different, the 1939 ensemble. Or
It's him and a guitar.
Yeah.
It's
the most
I don't
recent
know
one.
what to call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what genre I'd call it. It's very cool though. I
Very
love it.
eclectic and cool. I love
It comes on and everyone's like, "What is that?" That's
Jose
cool.
was here over the drum show actually, so
Yeah.
he dropped by here, and he's just a kind soul, and I love that I
Yeah.
got to meet him because he's great.
Jose is a gentleman.
He got a really cool kit while he was here
Hey,
too, actually. Too.
Oh, what did he
He
get?
plays with his hands. Like he uses the old kits. He uses the stuff from the.
Oh yeah.
Like he'd use this thing.
No, yeah,
That'd be perfect for him.
Totally like we toured together. He played with.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He got a gig with another artist that was signed on Jack Johnson's label. This guy Donovan Frankenreiter.
I didn't know he was playing so much. That's awesome.
Well, this was several years ago.
Okay.
I mean, he still plays constantly, but back then I had the good fortune of touring with Jose, and I just remember like he was bringing out like Leedy, like 26-inch. I'm
Where did you get that?
I'm guessing like really cool stuff.
It's 100 years old.
No
man.
rack tom, and
You're bringing it
like,
on a gig. Yeah.
just some great
Cool.
stuff. Him and Pete, a couple of drummers that were proudly playing vintage gear, and so it definitely steered me in the right direction. And then you got like the Daptones and a lot of other people getting that vintage sound back and putting a premium on that. And so I was just glad that your shop started that. And then I think a lot of other cool regional local shops followed suit or did their own spin on it.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
in the 90s and then the 2000s, all of a sudden, everyone was really interested in the old drums again.
Yeah.
If you went to like 1985, no one cared. No one cared about a drum. And then to 95, people start getting a little more interested. By 2005, it was becoming a real.
Well,
a real thing.
and to I think to come to the defense of the 80s and 90s folks, we just didn't know where to get them.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
weren't in
true.
Modern Drummer. There was always, we just got what we got,
You can't just type it all out and
Do
just
you,
see
No.
everything
do you
that's
remember?
available.
I don't know if you were gigging a lot then, but the hardware situation. It used to be that
No, it was ridiculous.
you either have a 1960s stand,
Which we
and
could
you're-
never
and
find.
You don't have like back problems, or you have because like all the hardware was like really heavy, and there
Yeah.
was no light option, no flat bass option.
Super, yeah, it was
When we
super
started,
bizarre.
actually, that vintage hardware was actually something we sold a lot. People always wanted it. When we were downtown, people would always come to us
Yep.
for that stuff because, hey, I'm carting the stuff around. People even like buskers,
I think
I'm
since
playing on the
then-
street. I don't need a
Yep.
double braced.
Companies have caught on since then and started
Yeah.
reproducing lightweight hardware
Now it's
wasn't
the in
around
thing,
back
yeah.
then. But it's back in, yeah.
You know, it's the really good one. Swan leg stands. Have you ever? It's the Rogers cymbal stands.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they-
My
they-
buddy Stephen Flynn.
If
turned
you
me onto
combine those with flat bass stands, it is just really nice because you can fit anything anywhere you want.
those. You'll have to show me that one because.
I got a couple of them in the studio.
there's a
We
couple
use them
over there.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
the
great.
extra cymbal stands.
But I think as time goes on, it could be a trend. But I just sort of think people are more really thinking about how to make people's lives easier on like a gigging base. Like
yeah.
when you go to a gig, like I'm on a kind of a bigger tour right now, but when I'm in Los Angeles, I go to a club and I show up and play, and sometimes there's a backline kit, but inevitably someone's going to want to bring some cymbals and a snare and make some stuff work, and you have to just drag some things, find parking, drag some things across a parking lot,
Yeah.
and show up. And I just think people are just fine-tuning everything.
You said it before, but I don't. Did you say the sizes? Like, what's your preferred sizes? 22, maybe.
20,
20. Okay, 20.
yeah, 20 kick is usually pretty good.
14, or you like 16, or
Probably 16.
Okay,
Just because
a little more low end.
yeah, and I think because I playing amplified music, I think a 16 is cool. I'm sure
Yeah.
if someone knows how to tune great, like you guys, you could get a 14 and sound epic. But
They're just different. Yeah, the 16s are like a little lower, I think. This is just me. But I don't know, it's hard to say cuz yeah, the dimensions of the drum, when you make it deeper, it's like less. So I think that the fundamental, it almost like it hits you in the heart more, but then the actual pitch you hear with your ears, I feel like you get a little more body out of a 14. That's just me. Like the
Yeah.
16 and the 18 goes straight to your heart.
right,
The 14 is a little more in your ears. Maybe. I don't know.
no, it totally makes sense. And since you guys know how to tune, like a 14-inch floor tom is not an easy thing to tune unless you
Yeah.
know what you're doing. 16 is a little easier to tune.
You know what my favorite sizes are?
Agreed.
I like
Let's hear.
20, 13, 16.
Me too. So
Which is-
the kit
Oh,
I'm
is
using
it?
now
Oh,
is a
bang.
2013.
Nice.
13 is epic. So I guess they call that a super beat or whatever. I don't know. Giant beat. They
I
have
can
some
remember.
word for it. But that's the shit. But you've got a 2012. 14.
2012 14 is usually
Bebop.
what I go for, but I've been getting bigger drums lately.
Yeah.
But I'm a 20-inch bass drum guy, like all the way. I'll
It's
play other
hard to
stuff,
go
but
back. It really is because they
sound good.
They can thump. They can. I mean, of course, if you're trying to get a Bonham thing happening, I think that's a tougher notion. I have some bigger kick drums, but then it puts the rack tom higher. Then you have to put it in your car. and
Sure.
Like I'm a working drummer, and
Were you ever in a band where you had to have like a really big kit? Like, how did they do it back then? You think about just you're driving from city to city in like maybe like 1985 or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
You got 10 drums. My wife's dad, he was in a band like that, probably around the 80s, and yeah, he had
like a Rush vibe or like
Yeah.
That was just the thing to have a
It
lot of
seems
drums.
like
Keith
everyone
Moon
had
and stuff.
at least
Yeah, it's fun.
5-piece drum set. Maybe
Did you guys ever
6 or
do a
7.
thing when you were kids of like you took your 5-piece kit and combined it with your friend's 5-piece kit and the colors would match, but you have this giant Keith Moon kit and then
With me, it would be with my dad.
Oh,
And then
yeah,
my first kit was a Rogers Gold Sparkle 20, probably 12, 16.
that is so cool.
Might have been a 14. We had them facing each other. But then I wanted a Pearl. So my second kit was
Because you're probably into rock and stuff.
I think it was like a Power Fusion Tom Pearl, like 10,
And
12,
your dad did he be
15,
like,
14,
no,
or
that's
16
not
or
what
something.
that's not what
Hey,
He's cool, or he was cool.
he was trying to explain to me why the old drums are cooler,
Right.
and I just didn't really agree with him at that point.
Yeah.
But then it didn't take me too long to figure out when you grow up in a shop like this, you start to realize, certain things. And then I reversed it and I went on to like every drum has to be completely open and not muffled.
Yeah.
So I became kind of like a jazz fundamentalist for a while.
Well, that's cool too.
And then a little more recently, the last like 10 years, I think I record a lot now. So it's just all about the different things you can get. There's no like one correct drum sound. Yeah. You were talking about that earlier, how this instrument, it's like always a novelty because every drummer you have is going to have a completely different setup, and so the sizes are all different and
the architecture's different, and
Yeah.
you've seen the trends now where like the great Questlove just did away with the rack tom completely, and had a very minimal kit, and then that got on people's radar. I think
Sure.
he had a huge impact on how a lot of drummers.
What kind of snare is he using now, I wonder?
Who knows? He's a Ludwig guy, but
yeah, it's definitely Ludwig.
You got a metal snare maybe?
I'll have to watch the Late Show again and check
Sure.
it out.
Yeah.
Questlove's such a good groove.
he was fantastic.
yeah.
So like, and then and at the same time, we were just like, if you'd have to go play somewhere and load your own stuff in LA or go record at your friend's house, I just realized, especially if you're doing kick, snare, hat, and you're making beats, that's kind of, you can have a lot of, I've had some of the best gigs in my life with kick, snare, hat, and a ride, and maybe a floor tom and and a bell.
I use my floor tom as a table most of the time.
Yeah, right?
It's like for my music.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because I always think when I play a gig, usually I write out a chart, kind of like tune 1, tune 2, and a lot of the times I'm just like, what's the intro? Because that's what once I get going, I'll remember it.
Right.
And then when you take a solo, you just throw it off, hit the drum, and then put it back on later.
Well, that's cool too, because like the music stand is like, is that showmanship? I guess you see people.
I think
do it,
that you already have so much stuff as a drummer. If you have the music stand, it like brings you away from the kit.
Why doesn't somebody make a music stand with a boom, with a boom on it, where you can sort of like in the studio too? I'm having to like.
We need to get a Google Glasses music stand.
I know, right?
It's like right there.
Exactly. Or
Just
like
the one eye.
or like something that hangs like
How
a
does this
visor.
guy know every tune?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I like it. That's like some Jason Bourne kind of Tom Cruise thing. Yeah.
Oh, I mean that probably already exists actually.
There are people do iPads. Do you do charts or iPad? Like how do you?
Just notes on my iPhone for whenever I'm playing music. Because
Yeah.
I haven't dove into theory yet, so it wouldn't really serve me well.
A
to have
chart, but
music there.
if you're learning a tune, do you memorize? You just memorize it?
Yes,
That-
and
and
then
that's the
I'll
best
take notes on my phone if there's any like things that I need to remember, and I'll just reference that. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I'd probably use an iPad
Yeah.
these days. Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
think.
mean, it's so modernized now that you have like your in-ear mix on an iPad, so I do use one for that sometimes.
That blows me away.
Doing in-ears.
Yeah, so
It's crazy.
yeah, no, you do like some church gigs.
Yeah, church
There's a
gigs
pretty
all the time.
advanced monitoring technology there.
They're very set in stone on their guidelines, and
Yeah.
it's almost like their click track. You can put in all the other instruments and stuff like that too.
So you're
They're
playing
very
to a click.
modernized. Yeah,
Wow.
all the time with them at least.
Good on you.
I don't prefer playing with a click live, but I can definitely do it
Yeah,
now thanks to them.
What do you guys think about practicing to a click?
It's useful to me.
Yeah.
It's a pain to get up and change it all the time, but that just means I need a better metronome.
Right. Right. What about you?
Yeah, pretty important.
Yeah.
I think it's very important. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But then, yeah, I think it's really important to, one of the things that I like playing with the best, this is for like jazz stuff, but like if you find an album that has maybe just like a guitar and a piano,
Right.
I think that's better than a click.
Yeah.
Click is also good though. And it also depends on what you're doing. Like if you want to be like the Wrecking Crew, then you should probably be really good at playing to click stuff these days.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough too. And then sometimes it's difficult because sometimes you think you can play to a click and then it's not quite.
Mm-hmm.
But what about you? Do you do a lot of like if you're in the studio, do you do a lot of stuff with the click?
You kind of have to.
Yeah,
You kind of not.
Got to
think
get on the
it's
grid
better.
there.
Well, you have to know how to do it, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the best records we probably would all agree on, knowing this cast of characters, were made without a click, and it just felt right.
Sure.
You know, I mean,
even multi-tracked without a click. I think like the Beatles in like that era, they'd like multi-track stuff with no click, which that's really rough.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Milford Graves, the great Milford Graves, would say that having a static. I think it was him. It was either him or Andrew Cyril that said. I think it was Milford Graves that would say that time is supposed to speed up and slow down, and that a static pulse actually creates tension.
Okay. Yeah.
But in the modern world, when you only have like 3 days or 4 days,
Yeah.
and you're doing a bunch of takes, and they want to edit things together, you kind of have to do it. But
It's an important skill. Yeah.
It's
If
important
you're going to
skill.
be a drummer, you probably should learn. Yeah.
But
practice
then
with
the
a
thing that I
metronome.
got into, and since you're working with the click so much, you might agree, is like you get addicted to it, or not addicted to it. You rely on it, and because
Oh yeah.
you rely on it because then
God forbid that click goes out in the middle of the set. There, it's panic at that place. So
right, or like if you're recording a song and then there's some dispute on the time, it's on us. You know, when maybe one of the other band members might get excited and push and pull. You've got that click as the referee. No, solo me in the click. I'm on. I'm right. You're wrong.
Sure.
But then you think about like whether it's you're listening to Coltrane or Don Cherry or Bill Evans, or you're getting into the Meters or James Brown or Led Zeppelin or Fela Kuti.
Yeah, man.
Those records had a click, and they just felt it right.
This is the
and-
first Fela Kuti mention on a
I love it.
podcast. I love
yeah,
it.
it's just the two little sticks going tit tit.
Sure.
Someone playing them, So
That's good stuff. That brings
Yeah.
me back to my like high school days. Yeah, I used to listen to that in
see?
high school.
oh, dude. So you were way ahead of the curve,
Yeah, we used to hang out in Oak Park a lot.
Rad.
You ever been to Oak Park?
No, I
It's
don't.
a western suburb of Chicago. Really cool city.
Good vibes, like world music vibes and stuff.
Oh yeah, everything there. They have really, really good music programs and just a really artsy city. It's where like Frank Lloyd Wright. A lot of his
wow.
houses are there.
Such traditions here. Yeah.
Yeah, and then really lots of art, lots of art, lots of good food.
oh yeah.
Yeah. But with a click, I'll do, because some things like now I'll get into, like I started getting back into the Wilcoxon, which book is the American, I forget the title. There's a specific title. I took a class with Kenny Washington once, and
Syncopation. Wait,
no, it's a Kenny. It's
I'm just
Charlie Wilcoxon. There's like American. I forget the title, but it's
okay. Maybe we can put it in the description.
Yeah,
We'll
for what I was
remember
told,
later.
like maybe Philly Joe and Elvin, a lot of
Yeah, 'cause-
all of the greats worked out of that book.
Yeah, if you have any good books, yeah, we can put it up so people checking out can.
Well, that's what I was told. Like Kenny, like I played a little bit, but most of the time he talked about learning those things, but not on a practice pad, on a snare drum,
yeah.
and getting a snare drum where you can do a tap, like pianissimo tap, and then develop that into triple F, like getting those dynamic. That's hard.
Yeah, definitely.
You put that with a click, and you get those a couple times, and at least with me, my hands were at one place, and I started doing that book, and they went to this whole other place. And him and maybe Danny Frankel. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's played with Lou Reed and Laurie Anderson, and
My
but a
dad's
bunch of-
talked about him before.
oh, Danny's incredible. And as far as
I know.
jazz, he studied with Paul Motion. So Danny was one of the guys
Nice.
too that would play what we call jazz or improv, but then go and do a really incredible, cool pop session at the same time. And
Yeah.
but he would say, Charlie Wilcoxon, man, do that book, and he would learn them on a bongo, everything, and the snare drum, and so there's
Yeah.
a lot of cool. So, but I'll do that with the metronome, or I studied with this other guy, Murray Spivak, and we of course take us through 5, 7, 9, 10, all the different rolls,
Sure.
and you certainly on a click and single strokes, and then more recently I would get together with like this guy Chad Wackerman, who's
Yeah.
pretty incredible Frank Zappa alumni, and he was having me do like, and I sound like I'm like some brainy drummer. I'm not. I'm just really a backbeat person, but it's fun to try things. So he'd have me do
Yeah.
like sextuplets or like sixes, going from like 6 to 7 to 30-second notes within a quarter note pulse. And so there, I think it's good to have a click, because just superimposing like from quarter notes to eighth notes to quarter note triplets to 16th notes, and then to doing 5 16th notes, whatever, per beat, and then bringing that to 6. So it's a sort of like different subdivisions. So having a click there is really, it's just a fun thing, and it takes the drudgery out of just doing single strokes, which is just boring as fuck.
You were talking about the pad earlier, which I think is interesting, because I think it's actually a danger if you practice on a pad too much. 'Cause
Yes.
You were talking about your touch.
Oh, I
and
couldn't
it'll
agree
make
more,
you
dude.
hit so hard. Yeah.
Well, that's why Kenny Washington, like, he was just lecturing me, man, because I learned, he gave me some pages to learn from this book.
Yeah.
And I learned them. I can read a little, I can read, maybe not like a classical person at all or a chart person, but I can read. But
Did you learn at Berkeley, or were you like learning
Berkeley.
Like kind of like more traditional stuff before you went over there?
No, man, my band teachers hated me. I was so undisciplined,
Sure.
I was such a little punk, and so I made up for it. Later, I took it more seriously. But
Nice.
but
there is valuable stuff there. It's a pain to get in the old noggin, but once you got it, you use it.
They were right. I was wrong. What can I say?
Yeah.
But rock and roll is what it is.
I wish I would have spent more of my time when I was in high school not screwing around and practicing. Learning. We've all got.
Yeah, I don't.
College probably too. I did practice a lot in college. I did one summer where I did like maybe 7 hours a day.
That's rad.
Because I did nothing else to do, and I had a practice room, and everyone else was like gone. I lived in the dorm over the summer.
And you were
That was the
music
best.
major?
Yeah, I was a music major. Yeah,
That's dope.
You know Paul Wertico?
Yeah.
He's played with tons of people.
Oh no, yeah.
Pat Metheny being probably the most.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he was my teacher, and he was actually
my
in
gosh.
charge of the department.
Wow, which school?
Roosevelt, Chicago College of Performing Arts at Roosevelt. So
Congratulations!
it's
What
kind
an
of
honor.
it's a very conservative school. Really, really challenging theory program. It was one of the best in the country. Took me 3 times to pass music history.
They would eat me alive.
They would have thrown my ass on the curb.
I passed, though.
Yeah, they would have thrown my ass on the curb.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because
Berkeley's a little more. It seems like they're just maybe a little more, I don't know, progressive. Like they have like just new genres. They're open to
maybe now
experimental
when I was there,
things.
I did want to learn about jazz, and I think I got exposure. Like got to hang out with John Ramsey and stuff, but
Nice.
Joe Hunt.
Was your like performance degree?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
I
same
never
as me.
graduated, but that was the angle.
Sure.
But I did feel like. So here's a story at Berkeley. I auditioned for ensembles, and I had been gigging. It was in Tahoe. It was with a bar band. So like I had just gotten a 1-drop beat, reggae beat, pretty good, and I wanted to try something different. So
Sure.
there's an ensemble band, but yet my reading chops weren't. I
One
just
drop
didn't-
beat. That's what the bass drum hit on 2 and 4, right? That's what you're talking about?
Depending on if you're counting at cut time or
Okay.
regular, yes. It's-
Yeah. That's the bass drum. 4.
Yeah.
1. That's how I.
Yeah.
It's
So
the coolest beat. Because
it's a great beat.
Backwards
And,
from rock.
The great Carlton Barrett. I mean Marley was one of the biggest influencers of our time musically. So
Yeah,
I was really
definitely.
interested in Carlton Barrett. I mean, I wanted to learn about Art Blakey, and I remember I auditioned with a Bob Marley tune, and they did not like it.
Okay.
I remember them giving me zeros or something, or I
Oh,
don't know
no.
what it was. And I was a gigging drummer, but my reading wasn't there. But I had worked. I had received Federal Reserve notes for playing drums.
Sure.
So I was like, what the heck? I remember almost leaving, but then I had to get in the mindset of like, these guys, their thing is jazz, and their thing is being able to read. They had asked me to do like, okay, go from swing to Latin, and then here's 4 bars and hit this figure at bar 4. And I didn't know any of those things. And so they sort of deconstructed me. And but ironically, it was that 1-drop beat that's put food on my table for 20 years now,
Nice.
So who knows what? And maybe being able to go from Latin to jazz has been fun and great and helpful, but
Yeah, jazz is kind of like a tradition.
It's-
Yeah,
well, it's-
not necessarily something that you you need in the real world these days. Yeah.
Well, for many, I mean, there's the Brian Blades and these people that just like, wow.
Did you play with any of the big bands over there?
I subbed a few times, but I have a feeling I would ask to get subbed.
I never played with the big band at
because the
Roosevelt.
big band drummer didn't
always
want to
wanted
lose
to.
their gig, so they called someone that wasn't as good as them, so they could, you know what I'm saying? It was more like
Sure.
that because with jazz, there were such good drummers that would come in from like Israel, Japan, whatever. Then they were really focused, and I was just coming in. I guess maybe I was open to rock, and I was in a African soukous band, and I was in a ska band, and I would do a jazz session whenever I could, but
Sure.
you know, I liked other stuff too, and I almost feel like it's almost like the same. I play bata drums, which are the Yoruba traditional rhythms that they play within a religious context, and I study them in LA, and I study them in Cuba. I haven't had my hands washed or consecrated to play the ceremonies, but I've studied. It's a total discipline, and I think the people that are really good there, most of them I feel like make that a priority. Like, this is what I'm going to do. This is my life, or this is a good chunk of my life.
Sure.
And I think if I ever wanted to do anything with jazz, I think I'd have to make a certain commitment there as well, because it's such a sacred.
That's kind of it's strange, but yeah, it is in a way.
It's kind of sacred.
Tradition, yeah.
Oh my God! I mean, just looking at some of the guys that really have it, they've, in my mind, that authentic touch and sound is something it takes so much work. There are people that can play a lot of notes over a swing pattern, and that's cool too. But the people that really, really, really sit there and can do those really quiet quarter notes on the bass drum and get the hi-hat just right.
Yeah.
And get that touch where they're playing pianissimo, and then, that's next level.
Yeah,
so
the
I just
swing.
could never, yeah.
You gotta love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get some cool people coming through, jazz guys. Do you know Eric Binder?
No.
He used to work here for a while, and he's a really, really accomplished jazz drummer. Local, he's really bebop. His thing, he loves tiny bass drums.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Going to his place in a couple hours, actually.
Oh, you're going to Eric's? Nice. You just hanging?
Play some drums tonight. Yeah.
Oh,
It'll be
cool,
fun.
Oh my
man.
God! So you get to hang with all these.
Oh, it's fun.
Pretty much all we do. We just come to work. We just play with drums all day and go home, play with drums a little more.
You have life figured out, my friend.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, we're very fortunate. Yeah. And my dad worked really hard to build up this place kind of from nothing into what it is today. So
Yeah. Well, we're all better for it.
yeah, we're all appreciative for it.
While we're on the topic of jazz, this shop was really my first introduction to jazz, not doing any theory background or anything like that.
Uh-huh.
So I've dealt with some like pretty intense imposter syndrome, just seeing other people that are really well versed on their chops and everything.
Uh-huh.
But the Steves, I mean, they're very up to speed on their stuff, and so
Imposter syndrome?
yeah, dude.
You shouldn't have that.
I guess not, but I mean, my
No, it's
my
totally
wheelhouse
understandable.
is my wheelhouse is just like a 4/4 groove. You know, I can
Sure.
do that. I can maybe play some jazz stuff if I watch long enough, but
It's funny because
it's humbling working here with you guys, because then I get a lot of exposure to that, not just from you, but also our clientele. So
the roots of jazz drumming are completely not really. It's the same. It's like boom, brr, boom, brr, boom, brr, boom. Brr. That's like the root of jazz drumming. All the other stuff changed later. It's funny because I feel like in most forms of music, the drums kind of becomes like the foundation. Maybe tell me if I'm wrong. It's not always, but oftentimes prog rock. There are some exceptions where it actually becomes like almost a soloist, but oftentimes it's like the foundation. In jazz, when it started out, it was like that, but drums changed to become like a total even participant in the band. Mm-hmm. So like if you listen to a really good band, maybe like McCoy Tyner on piano, you'll hear the piano will start playing the groove. Mm-hmm. They start, but like the repetitive pattern, and then the drums will go a little nuts.
Right.
That's one of the things that's cool about jazz, is the conversation that happens.
Oh, yeah. It is sublime, and it's so fun when you start to, because I totally relate as far as like getting to Berklee as more scratching 30 years old and meeting students that had that had studied it since they were young and maybe done youth orchestra and done high school jazz band and put the work in.
You didn't know Jason Patera, did you?
I didn't.
He went there about the same time as you, I think. But if you weren't there too, yeah.
Some great guys in my class. Abe
That'd be
Laborio
crazy,
was there,
He
and
was one
John
of my teachers.
Roberts. Yeah, no, there was some. It was bonkers.
Yeah.
So then the other problem with going to a place like that is when you leave, having Abe Jr. on drums and stuff, is you're just like, well, I'm headed for the cruise ships, or in my case, I got a teaching credential, and so sold ties, did all kinds of other things just to work because.
Yeah.
I think you leave one of those places sometimes, and they're well-intentioned. They're just like, we're going to get our students ready to work, So they would ask questions like, well, you could do a cruise ship gig, or you could play top 40. They had these different expressions, casuals. And those things really went against all the creative grains that I had, because I had envisioned music as like, I don't know, as art, as like expression, and then maybe the commerce would figure itself out, but the art would come first. So I kind of left just sort of thinking that I had misperceived, or that I thought of being in a band as like watching an episode of the Monkees. Like I thought like I must have misperceived what music is really about, or being a professional.
Oh, okay. Yeah. A lot of people have that experience. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. And so like that was the problem with, I think, a certain way of thinking about music. Because, dude, you could get around another crop of musicians that they'll just sit around and they put, instead of the technique, the most of their focus is on the concept. I don't want to sound like this. I don't want to sound like that. What do we do? What can we do that no one's doing? That's totally unique to us. That's pure. I could easily listen to Freddie Hubbard or Jonathan Richman, or go back and listen to a lot of the great 80s bands, or listen to Keith Jarrett.
I've been listening to some 80s Stevie Wonder.
Oh, yeah.
Some really cool stuff in there. I bought like a greatest of LP.
Oh, yeah. It's more of his drum machine era, huh?
Yeah, that stuff's kind of cool. It's so funny. It's almost like 80s music sounds more futuristic than our music now.
Oh, no, we're trying to sound retro.
Yeah, because everything. I listened to the record my buddy just came with. He's playing with a 1930s Slingerland with his fingers on the drum. And you listen to the 80s stuff, and it's
definitely no
not an
secret that
acoustic
people
drum
are
inside.
trying to circle back to that sound presently, like
Yeah.
trying to recreate it. It's regaining popularity again.
Yeah. No, did you get into the Daptones and a lot of the work that they did with?
Not a whole lot, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will after this, that's for sure. But
Well, they would do. Everyone heard the Amy Winehouse record. That was and so she had a lot of old grooves underneath her that kind of alluded more to like maybe, I don't know, Sly Stone or James Brown or a lot of the great girl groups of the Motown stuff. And so that was really good, healthy for me to see like kids a lot younger than me that were using old mics and putting things on tape like what you have in your studio and trying to get that old crunchy sound and maybe elicit some of the vibe of older recordings. Now, I'm not saying like
It sounds different.
if you can sound exactly like this era, you're cool, and if you sound digital, you're not cool. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's good to like mess with it,
Yeah. It's another tool in your arsenal. You got
Yeah.
all kinds of different things you can use to get your
Right.
sound.
Right,
Oh,
so-
the tape. If anyone listening ever wants to try, maybe I should buy a reel-to-reel. Just do it. Just do it, because reel-to-reel tape is so cool. You end up with things you never would have ended up with, even by mistake.
Right.
Like you put it on backwards and it's playing backwards. And it's like, oh, that sounds so cool. You never would have noticed that before. And that's how they came up
I
with
so want to get an 8-track now after seeing your studio and maybe hearing
all the
a couple
digital
of other.
effects that we have now that we take for granted. Oh yeah, I'm going to put some flange on there. I'm going to put a phaser on there. It's all from people with tape machines that made mistakes, or from broken machines, analog machines. That's what led to these cool effects. Not all of them, but most of them. Like auto-tune isn't. But
So an 8-track is portable enough to where if it has to get calibrated or fixed, I can bring it to a guy.
you could get a TX just like mine. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
and
taking
those,
a picture of that. Cause
Probably,
I'm
probably
gonna
get one for like $2,500, maybe $3,000 for
How
like
many
a,
inputs?
It's got 8,
Okay.
and then they're RCA. unbalanced.
So what does that mean exactly?
Well, it's line in inputs, and
As opposed to XLR or?
yeah. So XLR inputs have 3. There's
Right.
the ground, and then there's 2 things that have the signal, and if it's a balanced signal, it inverts those and then re-puts them back, so that anything that's picked up along the cable will then be canceled out. So you can have like a 500-foot long balanced cable, and you won't pick up any AM radio.
Oh, that's cool.
But if you have an unbalanced cable, like an RCA, like in your record player, that's an RCA cable.
Right.
If it's too long, it'll start picking stuff up.
Oh.
But it's a fine cable though. There's nothing wrong with RCAs, but it's a little. The machine doesn't have preamps too, so you have to have a board. So
Okay.
you go onto the board and then
Oh,
the
so it
machine.
doesn't come with preamps in it.
That one doesn't. The 4-tracks do though. The 4-tracks you can
4-tracks.
just plug straight in. But then they don't have phantom power. There's other things you run into. Yeah.
Oh,
so you can
gosh.
only use non-condenser mics, unless you get one of those little phantom power units. There's ways around it.
All right, can you get like a small, not to nerd this thing out too much, but with an 8-track, can you get a board that has good preamps that's not huge and giant, that's portable as well?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can. And then there's different kinds of 8-tracks. There are ones that have internal preamps too. It's just mine doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's all different types.
And are those XLR inputs or are those
Later
line out?
ones.
Like, is that 1/4 inch?
XLR became mine's from like 1981. XLR became popular and like kind of ubiquitous probably by like 85, 86. And yeah, you start seeing them in all the machines. It's also it's like higher end machines.
Okay.
It's weird. Yeah, the one that I have, it's like it is a professional machine. I think probably when those were new, a lot of people probably used them to record live performances. I bet they'd like move them with the tour probably around.
Oh, wow.
And then the really big bands, they'd have a truck with 2-inch machines.
I wonder what they
There.
use to record like
Size of a
like
refrigerator.
Coltrane at the Vanguard.
Probably something like I have.
Or like those.
Like a 4-track or an 8-track, yeah.
Do you think they did 4-track or 8-track, I wonder?
Yeah, it could be either. Because, yeah, they didn't have a ton of money.
Can you imagine that? Some of
Yeah.
those records? Like those live at the Village Vanguard, at the Village Gate.
Yeah.
It was just some dude sitting at a table with like,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. There's something about tape machines too. They look like a smiley face.
Wow.
Yeah, the where the mouth is the VU meters. My kids love them. Yeah, they're friendly looking.
That's cool.
I don't know. I mean, that's maybe very silly, but there's just something about them. I take them
Nice.
apart too. I've taken mine apart. You got to oil them. You know, when I got that 8-track, it wouldn't even turn on.
Would you like Craigslist or something?
I don't know where my dad got that. He just randomly bought it one day. It might have been an early Reverb thing, right when Reverb started. Right
Oh,
when
wow.
Yeah, that might have been. Because, yeah, like this is when we were in Naperville. At one point, we got a 4-track, and I just started using it, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I just kind of learned one thing. I still don't know everything. You're always learning new stuff, but you got to get your impedance. That's a big thing. If your impedance is off, big problem if you're recording stuff.
What's that?
Well, you got line level or mic level,
Right.
and you don't want to confuse those two. And then a lot of old boards, if you have a 1/4 inch cable, you put it in, that's automatically going to be line level. And then if you have an XLR and you put it in, you have to hit the pad if it's line. It's can.
So if you don't hit pad, the signal's going to be too hot.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay,
and I've
okay.
done that before,
All right.
and it'll get you a little bit of distortion. Some might like that distortion though, and
Right.
also depending. See, another cool thing about those old tape machines, I'm pretty sure those are transformer-based preamps. So if you got yourself like a Rupert Neve modern version that's probably nicer but built in many of the same respects, it's going to cost you about like maybe $2,500 to like $5,000 for 2 of these preamps.
Right.
You can get a whole tape machine with 4 of those on it for maybe $1,200.
Oh.
But you gotta want to go to tape. Yeah, it sounds so good. If you do direct in to a tape machine, I don't know what it is
man,
exactly.
I'm getting one.
Yeah, you should. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and I record drums a lot. I've got like a little space in the back of like a converted garage.
If you get one and you have like troubleshooting questions, give me a call.
Oh, dude.
I'll help you.
Perfect. Yeah, man.
It's great fun. Yeah,
Awesome, man.
good thing to pursue. But yeah. So more about you. Like, what was an early band? Maybe like the first band you were with, where you were like, all right, this is it. I'm gonna do this. The first band that you were with, where you started making a little bread, maybe.
That's so
Maybe
tough to
before
say.
college, maybe.
No, I mean I would do, like, when you do cover bands, you make money. It's a way of jumping in front of the line. If you're playing,
people know the song.
people know the songs, and you and a tavern owner.
That's why they keep making more Star Wars movies.
Right. It's the tavern owner's psyched because the clients are singing along.
Sure.
The minute you try to do original music and you're presenting it in a club, you're one of many, and so it's pretty. I've found it to be very drastic. Either you're aspiring and no one's making anything, and you're trying to hustle all your friends to go see you, and they kind of roll their eyes. What time do you go on? And then if you go on a little bit later, they're like, "Dude, I gotta go," or
I've had a couple shows like
there's
that.
that. Oh yeah, there's that, and it's incredibly difficult. And I think I just remember having a practice room in L.A. And I kept my drum room, I had different day jobs and different hustles and stuff, but I'd have this little drum room. I'd make sure I would scoop away enough money to pay for that drum room. Sometimes I could.
Were you in one of those kind of like shared spaces?
No, it was like they have a studio in LA called TK Studios. It's by the 405, and at least it was poorly insulated. So depending on who moved in next to you, you were going to have a good couple months or a bad couple months. But one thing, it was like,
the punk band is next door. Oh, geez.
well, yeah, as if they were loud and they were hitting hard, you were just bummed. You'd have to try to practice when they.
I used to in Chicago. There's some really cool places like that. I did a lot of free jazz at the end. So
rad.
You're talking about creative music. That's about. There are no rules.
Yeah.
I play with a guy who plays trumpet into a bowl of water.
Oh wow!
Like just all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
rad.
But yeah, we had a little space, and next to us was like this really hardcore band.
Yeah,
and we would like compete. We'd like trade sometimes. We'd play a little, then they'd play a little, then we'd play a little.
That's so funny. You're right. So, but you'd hear, like, I was in this rehearsal complex, and bands would last like probably 4 months, and 3-4 months later, someone else would move in, because I think they would try it and go through this really impersonal, difficult process of trying to be heard and get some leg room.
Yeah.
And then they would disband and move on. So it's a difficult slog to do original music. So I've always
Definitely.
So to make money, I just could never bring myself to do a cruise ship gig. And
I was going to ask you that too. Yeah, did you ever do those?
No, I mean, I did. I've done all kinds, like, you'd find me in a restaurant or a lounge or a club or a recording or teaching to some degree. I think teaching drums, I'll do it. I teach right now, but I think it's so hard for me to be in that class of thing, because, like,
sure,
dude, I studied with
every now and then. I'm kind of like that
Dawson,
too, yeah.
like John Ramsey, like Joe Hunt. Oh my God! And then the Afro-Cuban guys, like I know, or Kenny Washington. The people that teach, they're like masters, and so I think it does. On one hand, I have a lot of fun, and I have information I give to people that's been time tested, that I thoroughly believe in. But I think it's a high order that deserves some mindfulness. Like,
teachers are like
teachers great.
the most important people in the
Teachers
world.
are the most important thing. So it's a job I always took really seriously, and I didn't take it lightly. Mm-hmm. So
it's like sometimes you'll teach, but you don't have like a continuous.
No, I don't. But I mean, before I met Jack, I was in an indie band with a guitar player from this band called the Pixies. Did you ever hear the Pixies?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So Joey, the guitar player, Santiago, it was tough because I was like, he's just a hero, and I had to try to be starstruck, but.
Sure.
That was my first road gig, and he had a band called the Martinis while the Pixies were on the hiatus. So I got to work with him, and those guys really kind of helped me jump from like just being in a bunch of indie bands. And
was it similar like genre to the Pixies?
No. Oh yeah. I mean, Joe sounds like Joe. He's
sure.
Like, like not comparing him to Elvin, but I mean, Elvin, when he sits down, he sounds like Elvin. And he probably, he just does him. And I think,
some people just have their sound.
There's a certain cloth of artists that that's who they sound like. There's another person that can go in and really, like a studio wrecking crew type, they can go in and do Herb Alpert one day and the Beach Boys the
Form
next.
of form of this, form
Right,
of that,
and both
form
are badass and great. So
Yeah.
no judgment. But Joe, it was Pixies, except he'd written songs with his then wife Linda, and so that was an eye-opening experience in like touring and playing and being more in the, I guess, rock or indie rock thing, and I did that for a little while, and then I was in like other bands. One band that sounded like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and the one band that sounded like Bad Brains, and auditioning the whole time. And I was teaching at the same time and going to Cuba at the same time, studying Afro-Cuban percussion, and
That's great.
but it was just scraping by, like
Do you use the rhythms you've learned from the Afro-Cuban stuff?
Yes.
Like it's so cool. They
Yes.
always call it like folkloric.
Yes.
Like the rhythms have meaning. some of them.
Yes.
They're like
Yes.
religious meaning.
Yeah.
It's very cool stuff.
And I've been lucky to work as a folkloric percussionist. One of my teachers is named Cusito, and he's arguably one of the best folkloric teachers from Havana, and he came here, and he's teaching me the bata drums, but then he does functions of a religious nature that someone like me who's not initiated in the path can play. And there's rhythms called palo and huiro, which are definitely really earnest spiritual rhythms and stuff. But
Yeah, my teacher,
that sounds like abakwa. Yeah.
like so, yeah, it's a death, right? Death cult. He's telling me something like that. It's,
Oh, I don't know. I mean, if
they
if
play
you
it when
did
someone
like,
dies or something.
whatever. it
That's
was like a
that's
3
about
over
what I was
4.
playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, that sounds like it.
So anyway,
That's like the conga pattern.
and, well, actually,
This stuff is so interesting. Anyone,
is.
if you ever have a chance to learn about Afro-Cuban music, go for it. It's amazing stuff.
There's programs that take you. So the rhythm that he's talking about, at least if I think he was talking about abakwa, it's almost like the Masons. It's a secret, not secret, but you have to be a member, and there's certain rites or functions that someone like us couldn't see.
Sure.
But there's a rhythm called abakwa, and they have like these different clubs that you can go to, and
Very cool.
there's certain dances or rhythms. So anyway,
I know nothing about that. Yeah.
well, you know that
I
That's-
studied for a couple of years. Like I know the rhythms and the wawanko. That was the one that I.
Roomba is the best.
Yeah. We did a lot of that. I also did Birch Creek a lot. That was great. Tons of experience with all this stuff.
Did you ever get into hand percussion, Noah?
And percussion, I just got into it. I got some congas lately,
Awesome.
a djembe.
You have
I've
nice
had it.
congas.
I do.
You got a whole set
It's,
of 3. Yeah.
nice gift from the church, actually.
Oh, that's great.
They just were sitting down in the basement. They're like, here's a whole set of congas with hard shell cases and a djembe. And I was like, all right, cool. Looks like I need to learn.
I did get to do a couple of church gigs. No,
Yeah.
one in particular. And I always thought to myself, this has got to be one of the best places to perform, because, man, I'll tell you, you'll rehearse and you're playing or singing your heart out, and you're in a club, and there's nothing wrong with that environment and whatever's going on. But it's intense when people are there to have a good time and let it hang out. Sometimes you want to just maybe show off your art in a place where people are just there and totally clear-headed too. There's a total place for that.
You're not really the focus whenever you're playing at church, that's for sure.
Right.
So it's kind of a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways there. And
Yeah.
it's really, really good experience too. I mean, I
Oh man, top-notch
grew up
players.
doing that way, and it's a lot of good experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and it pays.
This mic keeps falling.
Not to sound crass. Not
Our vintage mic. It doesn't
It
fit in
does-
any of our
it
stands.
does-
really?
It's a great mic though.
It does pay, but
yeah.
But they gave me a bunch of really cool Latin percussion instruments over the last year, and so I've been just scratching the surface of those and starting to learn them more. And I think that's something that is definitely coming down the pipeline for me in the future. Is I'll be learning more of that rather than drum set. I really just want to do it all.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Find
You
somebody
know,
that can do both.
Another thing too, moving away from maybe the jazz idiom, if someone's just getting out there and working with an artist, if you can have like a percussion thing together, like I was really into Afro-Cuban stuff, and then when I started working with Jack Johnson, there were so many times where they're like, we can't have a kit. He plays acoustic guitar. You got to accompany him somehow.
Sure.
So I could make a good slap. My right-handed slap was pretty good, and my left-handed bass tone was good, and I knew how to get an open tone on a conga.
Nice.
And I liked a cajon. Before they were like everywhere. It
Sure.
used to be you'd show up with a cajon, they're like, what is that? You know, it's
He brought a wood box.
He's playing a box. Look at that, you know? I mean, that tradition came from people that worked on the docks in Cuba and that didn't have access to drums. And
Is cajon Cuban, technically?
That's a
don't know
tough one.
anything
I
about
don't
cajon.
want to have an ethnomusicologist yell at me.
Yeah, we
but,
might not even know where it came
Well,
from. I mean, it's a wood box.
you see him in Spain, you see him in Peru and stuff. But as far as I know, at least in Cuba, from what I'm told, and
Someone
I could
probably
be wrong.
originally just took a shipping box and started playing it.
People that worked in the docks
Yeah.
would grab the different boxes. So like the smaller boxes that would have candles and stuff was the improv box, and the big box, the big fruit boxes, were the bass notes and
That's
rhythms were
awesome.
made on that. And so cajon, those wooden boxes are a big part of the folkloric tradition in Cuba. It's definitely with, I've heard them used with rumba, wawanko, like so yambu.
I didn't even know the cajons were in there
Colombia.
in Cuba. Yeah, that's great.
Oh yeah, and in Palo too. Yeah. So I got my hands on cajon and conga. So when, on the other end of the spectrum, when an artist is like, look, man, I've got an acoustic gig and we want to do a duo or something, can you just play some percussion? You show up with a cajon and maybe a brush or a shaker, you're in the mix.
Yeah.
And so it's a good thing to know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have you ever played gigs where it was like you and then another drummer, 2 drum sets? That's always an interesting thing.
Yes, yeah. There's a really great drummer who William Patterson, I think, graduate, Sean Baltazar, who's one of my favorite jazz or everything drummers in Los Angeles, and we did something where we improv with 2 drum set players, and then I had another project called 3 Blind Drummers with Fredo Ortiz. He's played with the Beastie Boys
3
and
drummers.
Los Lobos.
Nice.
My friend Chris Cano, who played in the band Orson, and we had a blast.
Nice.
So
Yeah, do you, when you play with like another, like, do you like play less probably? That is starting out like.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, you musical, and especially like one guy's doing a beat and you can play things over it, or you can
Right.
grab a shaker or take the snares off and do like something on top of it. It's just super fun.
Like that's that Afro-Cuban stuff. Some of my favorite drummers, they're like drum set players for the Afro-Cuban stuff because you've got so many drums.
Yeah.
And then they play less. They don't play a lot of stuff. But
Right.
they like fit in. They find like a good place to.
Yep.
So sometimes I've done gigs with like 2 drummers where we end up almost like fighting each other.
Yeah.
Fitting in is very, very.
Usually it's drums and percussion. So I'll jump on, and I have good friends that are in a band. They're like, hey, can you come bring a conga and some shakers and play? I love it. I'll watch what the drummer does. I'll play a shaker. I'll play a tambourine. I'll hit a
Do
conga.
you hurt your hand from playing congas? Do you have any advice to not damage your
Yeah,
from all the slaps?
Absolutely. Well, it comes with technique. So the edge of a conga drum is really sharp, and the surface is really hard, and it's almost like a tabletop.
Yeah.
And so a lot of there's a conga player named Changuito. Well, there's a guy before Tata Winehouse, but there's a couple guys that really got the technique down to pull a tone out of a conga. They keep their hand flat, don't hit the edge.
That's for the open tone
Well, either the open
or the slap.
or the slap or the bass, keeping your hand away from the edge and really making sure that just like drumstick technique, whether you're learning timpani or traditional, keeping it really flat
Yeah.
and really getting the tone right. And so it's just taking the time.
If you're doing it right, you shouldn't hurt yourself too much because you don't want to be really tight.
Correct.
It's-
And you don't want to hit the edge.
Yeah.
And
Let your fingers kind of.
There's a sound. I mean, and everyone gets a slap a little bit differently. I've seen people get a flat.
I've never gotten my slaps to where I want them to be.
Yeah, that's an ongoing
Yours
thing.
sound better than me. I can even just tell on the table.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was doing during the pandemic and stuff, and while I was off the road, I was doing.
Doing some shedding.
Well, no, you just my teacher Kusita would be like, "We're gonna play a weirdo," and you know, you drive out to a house and play for 4 hours straight. You know,
You gotta have
maybe a
good
little
technique.
bit breaks, yeah. So yeah,
Your hand will fall off.
your hands feel like pieces of meat, you know. But then you get used to it, and it's fun.
What about, so yeah, you play a lot. I mean, you must get like exhausted from being on the road so much. You got any advice to keep your energy up, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think especially earlier in the process with, at least with Jack Johnson, like I think the first 2 records, maybe even 3, we practically didn't unpack, you know? We would just go home and just sleep it off and jump back out there.
It seems like fun, but I don't know how you guys do it. I would enjoy it for probably the first 2 weeks, and then I would just want to go home. Yeah,
It's hard, man, and especially depending on levels. I'll do. I've done van ones before a lot. Where you're just like gig,
that's even more intense. Yeah,
and then if you're lucky to get a hotel, you get a hotel.
yeah.
You might have a roommate. You might be the one that snores. They might
Right.
snore. Or if it's a higher budget, which it rarely is at a certain level, you get your own room, and then you get up in the morning, you drive all day, you get to the gig, you play, go to sleep, and then just repeat, you know? It's even rougher if it's a 45-minute set and you're opening for somebody, or a 30-minute set, and who's like, dude, we just drove 9 hours and we're going to play
For 30 minutes.
30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Come on, guys.
I toured Europe doing that once with a really great artist named Pierce Vicini, where we were opening for Ben Harper,
Yeah, it's funny.
playing a 30-minute set, you know?
It's
I'm
so
like,
short.
I just flew blah, 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 and did this, and we're going to play for 30 minutes in a loud auditorium. It's I don't know, man. I mean, I think the payoff is so obvious. I mean, it's harder touring in the U.S. and maybe during the winter and stuff, but, dude, if you get to go see all these places and meet all these people, and that's what makes up for it, the fun.
It becomes worth it at that
It
point.
becomes worth it at that point, unless there's a tough situation happening, maybe musically or with the personalities or with the money or with whatever combination. Then it can be incredibly hard if you're out there and not in a good place. So,
Oh yeah,
and I
yeah.
think that's why a lot of musicians, I'm guessing, might have had struggles with maybe substances or.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why I think bands can be volatile little beings. You know, I mean, it's an unnatural pursuit.
Sure. Yeah, the history of bands staying together. The fans want the music so much, and so many stories where they part ways. But yeah, you know, yeah, Noah, you should. Yeah, you got any?
Sure. First
You
of
should
all,
talk more. I'm
okay,
talking too
sure.
much.
No, like I said, I'm here to moderate. But yeah, I got a couple questions for you. First, you mentioned Ben Harper. I haven't listened to him in a few years now. How many magnificent members were in his band? I forget the rest of his band name.
Okay.
Got it.
Lost
Yeah,
the
yeah.
mic again.
Ben's had a lot of iterations. Ben Harper, if people aren't listening, and this is a jump because we're not talking about the jazz idiom, and I associate the shop with more the jazz tradition, but
Yeah,
we're getting into like
that's actually one of the reasons I wanted, because we talked enough about the jazz stuff. I want to talk more about
cool. So for maybe someone
yeah.
that for the outside chance they've stuck with us. Ben Harper is like was a really great. I guess I would call him like in the tradition of like Bill Withers or neo folk, or what would you call him? But he can sound like Hendrix or whatever.
He really does. It's definitely louder, and I'm trying to remember which rendition of him I saw, because I've seen Ben Harper before. I think it's like Ben Harper and the Magnificent Seven or something.
The Relentless Seven.
Relentless. That's
So he
it.
plays a Weizenborn, which
Yeah.
is a very rare type of lap steel. And anyway, he
I'm not familiar with this, but I like it already.
it's super cool. So
He's sweet.
Yeah.
I did play in a country band once,
Oh, cool.
and it was right when I got back into drumming. I was in food service for a while, incidentally. Yeah,
Rad.
but yeah, so I love steel guitar. Yeah,
Yeah, it's fantastic. I
such a
agree
cool
with you.
instrument.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, sorry, continue. Didn't mean to
And he's
interrupt.
like, so like in Southern California, he's from an area called Claremont, and it's sort of like sort of Orange County adjacent. And it was really exciting for all of us to see a young dude playing a Weizenborn. It's like a lap steel, but it almost looks like a beautiful handmade sort of lap slide thing. And he was writing songs that were really almost in the tradition of, I say, Bill Withers. He'd write about his feelings. He'd write about love. He'd write about politics. He was very introspective, and he could channel a lot of people, but he had his own sound and his own vibe. And when he came out, it was great because it felt like, being from Southern California, it almost felt like, and there's nothing wrong with Guns N' Roses and even the punk thing that came out of LA, but seeing somebody doing really beautiful sort of folk, rock, funk, soul things from Los Angeles, and all these dudes were like Los Angelinos, you know. He had Oliver Charles on drums. I mean, you guys have to hear this kid. Well, he's a man now, but just really great, really funky.
We'll put up a link of this, because I want to hear it too now.
Is that Ben Harper's drummer there, or
Oliver's I think been the most consistent. I mean, Ben's had a bunch of great drummers, Dean Butterworth and
trying to think of who I saw.
Jimmy
him with.
Paxson. If it was with the Relentless Seven, it wasn't. I think it was another iteration of his with the band. I'm not too familiar with them. I'm sure they're great, but the one I'm aware of and they probably at least participated in a lot of the hits is Juan Nelson, who just passed away, and Oliver. But anyway, seeing these incredibly funky dudes, but also play songs that had some sort of depth or emotional maturity, I think it must have influenced Jack, and it certainly grabbed me. I mean, these guys were totally different. So I think that started a movement. Again, I always talk about Bill Withers, but it was certainly more in that realm, you know, where people were trying to delve deep. You know, I liked it, and I think that changed a lot. And when Ben came out, it created a whole new scene, like of singer-songwriter. I mean, you think of LA, you could think of like the James Taylor, you'd think of Jackson Browne, you'd think of the Eagles. There's that whole Laurel Canyon scene that's now kind of famous. You would think about the Sunset Strip and the hair bands. Did you ever go through a Poison, Motley Crue phase? Probably not.
Just barely.
This isn't the crowd. And then you might think about the punk scene, so like the Germs and X and stuff, but you don't think about this kind of scene. And I think that thing happened. And I think it influenced Jack Johnson. We all loved him, at least. I can't speak for him, but I know that those guys, as they did a couple of really brilliant records, they let us open for them. And I think that was a really great experience, getting to watch a band that could really command a stage and have their own voice. So back to the thing of schooled musician versus autodidact. Like I taught myself, I was in bands.
Yeah.
You know, it was cool to be around things of people that maybe they had technique and stuff, but they really thought about what they wanted to do from a creative standpoint, and then manifested the technique to express it. So that was a cool thing for me to watch and to learn from, and to get to open for those guys, and then, you know, things just developed.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I've mentioned this yet in the podcast, but I've been following Jack Johnson's music since y'all just first came on the scene.
Oh, man, thanks.
My family would go on road trips and we'd listen to you guys. And so I have a question, and it comes from my dad, and he always used to mention that your snare drum sounded like a piccolo snare in some recordings.
Yeah, the first record, I had a Superphonic, a 70s Ludwig Superphonic, wide open.
Wide open for it.
It was wide open, and this before they made me mute everything for the
I was gonna say there was ring, and it was like a tasteful, and it worked in the music, and it was like some of the most ringy snares that I've heard. And so he would always say, "That's got to be a piccolo." And it's like, I don't know, but
it was a Superphonic.
Superphonic. Cool.
I have a story about how I sold it that I don't want to say, but it's it's a very special. It was the Lud alloy is a very special thing. You know, those 70s. It was what did they call it, an LM 400?
Yeah, yep. I mean, those are probably the most recorded snare drums in history.
Right. Yeah, I mean that drum is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
if someone comes in here from a studio saying like, I need a snare drum, that's I can tune. That's probably where I'm gonna, if I have one, I'm gonna show him that.
Yeah, that I just got my hands on. I was telling you a chrome over brass version of that with a transition.
Those
badge.
those are even their own. Yeah,
that thing is sick. You should check it out.
They're different. Yeah, the chrome over brass is gonna be heavier. The chrome's gonna stick better, and then because the aluminum ones, lead alloy ones, it like flakes off.
I like that. Yeah.
It's cool.
It's
Yeah,
cool.
but
Yeah.
patina. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the brass ones, it sticks really nicely to brass, and then it might have brass hoops also.
I
'Cause
hope so. Yeah.
There's a mixture. Some have steel hoops, and because they were kind of transitioning. But yeah, the ones with like brass hoops and a brass shell, that thing's gonna have just like a. See, I like them for rim shots because
Right.
your rim shot will be like incredibly piercing.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
then when you play on it, it's not. So that's what I like brass versus steel for.
Right.
Steel is strong, but maybe it's not as high pitched. Brass
Right.
is like a little higher pitched.
Right.
It's like a bing as opposed to like a like. Bong. I don't know. It's
So
like-
you can tell.
it's
So
very-
you've really put those under
that's
a microphone.
science right there. That's a scientific analysis of the.
Yeah, I mean, for us, like, it just varies from drum to drum. And then you think about Bonham that played the 402, the 6.5 by 14, which
His early ones might have been brass, but then later.
or no, yeah, they're metal. Sorry, he uses
Those
the
would
metal
probably
alloy.
yeah. The early ones, but we brass shell. But then actually, by the time he was doing those, are probably all aluminum ones.
And then he probably made the blue and olive badge 6.5 famous, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Matter of fact, my friend Brooks Wackerman,
Oh yeah.
he called me up. You know Brooks?
I'm familiar. Yeah.
He's rad, and he's like a drumming superhero. He called me up. He's like, dude, I just got to play Bonham snare on a session. And so I guess Jeff, this guy Jeff, that was John Bonham's tech, has one of his snares, and my friend
cool.
got to play it. I'm just like,
It's incredible.
yeah. I was
nice.
I was impressed.
Are you big bottom? You like bottom stuff?
Love. I mean, think about that for a Zeppelin record, man. Think about it.
Something else.
You know who my favorite rock drummer is?
Who?
Mitch Mitchell.
Oh, he's amazing
You know what? I'm
too.
kind of with you, actually. Mitch is like one of my favorites. But
He's
I like
amazing.
bottom though, but don't get me wrong. But yeah, Mitch
both
Mitchell's
of
my
those
favorite.
guys were hugely inspiring for me to starting out drums. I mean,
Yeah.
especially Bonham. Bonham made me want to hit drums hard. Ringo got me into playing drums, but Bonham just made me want to like just flow
Have-
some triplets down the whole thing. And
But think
go
about
nuts.
this, Noah. He was doing like Good Times, Bad Times.
Mm-hmm.
He was playing that on a Speed King pedal.
Insane.
Think about that for a second. I've tried a Speed King because I'm like, I want to do Bonham triplets. Maybe I'll get a Speed King. It felt like trying to dance in a pair of ski boots or something. I'm sure they're great pedals, but it's so different.
What kind of shoes did he wear?
I don't know,
That's a
but
good question.
But think about a Speed King. Have you tried to play loud rock on I mean, that's a
I
tricky
feel
little
like
thing.
Speed Kings are the pedal that will not help you in any way at all. It's all up to you with your foot, and anything beyond that, you're on your own. pretty
Yeah,
much.
I mean, so just imagine he created that sound.
I think Speed Kings are good for like feathering. It's weird. I don't think they're very. Yeah, they're like they want to have less tension. Speed Kings. They
Yeah.
want to have not a lot of tension, right? Whereas opposed to like DW 9000, that thing like it's a lot. You hit it, it's right back, ready to go again.
Right.
So it's very good for
Right.
double bass. Yeah. What is this tune you're talking about? What's the bottom? Is it?
It's Good Times, Bad Times.
How does that go?
Oh.
And he's got double bass. Everyone knows except for me. Okay,
Yeah.
I think I know it.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
I
funny
mean-
because I don't.
It's the quintessential.
Yeah, I know like every little jazz recording ever, but yeah, when it comes to the bottom stuff,
rock and roll, man.
yeah, that's interesting though. But yeah, what kind of shoes do you wear when you play?
Vans or just some flats, usually Vans. I'm quite superstitious about my drumming.
Do you know
footwear.
JoJo Meyer?
I'm a huge fan. I don't know him, but I'm like he is.
He's actually one of my favorite drummers.
Oh, dude, yeah, like a young girl would look at maybe Miley Cyrus. It's just like, oh my god, and I look at
Sure.
JoJo Myers like, oh my god, that guy's so
He's really
rad.
into pedals, and he would always go into the New York shop. I wasn't there, and apparently look at all the pedals. and he had Converse All Stars, and he had the soles of his Converse made leather.
Really?
Because he
drumming.
wanted to dance on the pedals like the guys used to do. That's why I asked. I wonder what kind of shoes Bonham was wearing, because if you're on a Speed King, those were kind of designed back in the day when people used to wear leather shoes a lot.
Oh, wow.
And so they might actually kind of be designed for that. It's a different feeling. It's like, because you have like almost no friction.
Yeah.
And you can, like the jazz, like you can go like this with your foot.
Yeah, I saw Tony Williams do that with his left foot. It was like from another planet.
yeah.
Playing like he was practically standing up. His seat was so high. So like everyone's so different. Then you see, all the other studio drummers sitting super low. There's not one way to do it.
I sit high. Yeah, I sit pretty high. Even for my height, I sit high.
All the jazz cats do.
I want my legs to be at least at a 90 degree, and then even a little up is okay.
Yeah, that's kind of
Sit pretty high too.
Yeah.
I never have to change the throne whenever you play. Like, great.
So then, really?
Yeah.
Then that means you sit higher than me because I'm taller than you.
Yeah, that's right.
Think about those Buddy Rich. Those canister thrones are quite high, right? He's definitely.
That's actually about where I sit. They're a little lower than I sit.
Oh, so maybe he was taller. Was Buddy taller? Rich?
Probably not. Probably not taller than me. Yeah. People used to be shorter. He was
I
probably.
wonder if you could custom order
I don't
how
know,
tall
though.
a canister throne was back then. Like if you really knew how long you wanted it to be.
Yeah, you just gotta
They all
get a
seem like the
chainsaw.
same way.
Okay, remember Mousy Alexander? We were talking about chainsawing.
Oh yeah. Pro
So-
Drum has Gene Krupa's.
Yeah, so-
it was.
And apparently Gene wasn't very tall, and Mousy was he was a local Chicago guy. He was very not tall. Yeah, so he had a throne that was with his kit, which our buddy bought a long time ago. Were you here for this?
Maybe.
You weren't here for this. This is before you started. Yeah, this guy Mousy, my buddy bought his drum set, and Bob, my friend Bob, you remember Bob, right?
Blast name?
I don't want to. Well,
Yeah, don't blast him out now.
it starts with an M.
Maybe.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
And so it's just because I don't know, he might not want me to say his name. I don't know.
That's right.
But they this thing, the throne, was because he was really short, so they had cut off like maybe half of it.
Wow.
And I'm trying to play the drum set like.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, he was apparently a really good drummer though. Mousy Alexander, I think that was his name. Yeah, he's a local Chicago jazz guy. Yeah. But yeah, no, ask more questions, man.
Oh man, all my questions are all about just your musical acts and just sound.
Well,
stuff
that's
and
yeah, that's
everything.
why.
It's gonna keep going into Jack Johnson for sure.
Yeah.
Feel free.
All right. It's all understood.
Mm-hmm.
Which snare drum on that one? That one had I think it's later on in the song. Not
Oh,
quite the
dude, you
bridge.
really listen to Brushfire Fairy
do.
Tales.
I
didn't
did.
you?
That was like my first intro into it, and I listened to it a lot. So it's just
thank
an
you.
album that's like stuck in my head forever, basically. I love it. So.
Wow. I think we used a bunch of different stuff because we did a bunch of different sounds. You know, we did that record in 2 days.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, the first day, so we're all super green. We go into the studio called Grandmaster in Hollywood, and they had recorded a lot of great records there. But it was super 70s Driftwood studio. They had Billy Preston's piano in this big cement room, and so that's where they recorded the drums. So we go on the first day.
Lots of reverb.
Yeah, for the drums. It was really cool.
Nice.
Where we did this song called "It's All Understood," which is sort of a Lennon McCartney-esque.
Yeah, natural reverb is something you cannot copy.
No,
Anyway.
no, and they got that sound. So, and I had a Gretsch round badge with the finish very similar to yours. Like
Nice.
it was like a purpley satiny thing. It was rad. But we went in and they erased everything the first day we did because we were too nervous. You know, we were playing to a click, and this is we were making a record. So
Everyone's
we
had a
tracked
day
it
like
in,
that,
We tracked it in 2 days. So I remember we were in a rush for that, and so
Wait, they erased it on accident?
no, they just sounded too nervous. So
Oh,
they're
okay, I
Well,
see.
we erased everything we did yesterday. Just redo it. And we
That
got
does
it.
happen sometimes, very rarely.
Oh yeah, I hear those.
How about, have you ever had that happen before? You do a
No.
good track and then accidentally.
I mean, I've done it.
The
when
engineer.
when I'm engineering my own stuff,
Whoops.
I've made some oopsies, some
Sure.
big ones, but not when those pro guys are
They know what they're doing. Yeah.
impeccable. Yeah.
There's a backup for the backup,
Oh, dude.
and then a backup for the backup.
Yeah,
Backup's
yeah.
backup.
Absolutely. But I think we used we had like a Brady there. We had my Superphonic. I think the engineer had a snare.
Brady?
Yeah.
You big into the Brady? This is Australian.
I had
This
a Brady.
is hardwood.
Yeah. I had an
Jera.
original Brady made by, dude, I met Brady when we went to Australia.
Friends down under.
Nice.
He's great. He was a wild guy.
Those
I-
Jera block snares are pretty incredible drums.
Oh yeah,
They're-
dude.
they're really
So one
responsive.
of those we used. I bought one on Craigslist, and then I since gave it to my friend JP. But yeah,
Nice.
They're like really hardwood stave.
yeah,
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, stave.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Always really well made though. Yeah. Are they still around, Brady?
I don't think so. I know Chris Brady
Either.
passed on, but I don't know.
I think his daughter. She was at the NAMM show.
Yeah, she's great.
I think the last NAMM show I went to may have been the one right after he passed away.
Oh,
it was like
wowzers.
maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah. I've gotten to meet her a few times there.
I remember she was talking to my dad. She was like, "Oh, these are all new drums." Yeah.
Oh, good. So Brady's still around. That.
Well, but this was like 7 years ago. So yeah. I
Oh.
don't.
I know Jack when he was there. He bought a Brady kit. It's beautiful. It's in his house in Australia. So.
Yeah, drum manufacturers are funny. Yeah, they a lot of the times, yeah, they don't. It's funny. It's like, why did this one last for 200 years and then this one only was around for a little while? Yeah, it's kind of an interesting.
I think it's almost just because from one drum manufacturer to the next person is always looking to do something unique. So it always brings something new to the table that wasn't there before, almost all the time. And then, sometimes it doesn't, but that's why you just keep getting really unique companies like Brady and Craviato and just everybody. I mean, they're all born out of a need for that niche of drum.
In a way, Craviato is actually going backwards.
Yes.
Because the
It's a
technology,
solid steam bend.
steam bending single
Single
ply
ply.
is older than gluing many plies together. That's actually the glues they use and everything, and the way they compress it. That's a much more modern thing. Yeah, Craviatos are almost exactly like. Well, if you get a Craviato with a baseball bat, it's almost exactly like an old Slingerland Radio King snare drum, single ply.
Wow.
You know, Leedy actually used to make single ply bass drums.
Wow.
I think they had a 3-ply, a 2-ply, and a single ply. And one was called the Spartan, and one was called the.
Have any come through your shop?
You don't see them almost ever, because most of the time you see a bass drum, it's going to be 3 plies. It's in here though.
I mean, what happened? Yeah, what happened to all the concert toms? Everyone's into concert toms right now.
Concert toms. Ooh.
Yeah, and the
like
LA
concert toms.
studio guys, they're using concert toms, but you just don't see them. There was a time when a lot of concert toms around there. So drums just vanished. That's what trips me out.
70s
Yeah.
concert toms.
Oh yeah, concert toms are a thing.
I actually love that. One of my favorite tunings is like the toms, one head on the top, a clear head with maybe a little bit of muffling, but probably not. It's best if it's a Slingerland kit because then you don't need to muffle it at all. And then a bass drum with a pillow and then one head.
Dude.
18, 20, doesn't really matter. 22. But yeah, just that sound. Just 2 concert toms, pillow in the bass drum. No front head.
That's it.
Or
man.
no resonant head on the bass drum, yeah.
That's the sound. And if you're
very
in the
simple.
studio and if you're tracking.
And muffle the snare too, probably. But
Yeah,
put
and
your
if you-
wallet on the snare.
That's the trick.
That's my secret muffle.
Yeah, everybody does that. Yeah.
But the problem is if you leave it on the snare drum.
Yeah.
Forget
right.
about it.
That's why you have to buy a RootsEQ drum dampener.
Well,
that's right.
actually, perfect. Yeah, we should
perfect
talk about it.
transition. I've
yeah.
heard of RootsEQ before you came here, and I honestly didn't realize that you were behind it. And
Yeah.
so I was very excited when you told me that.
Oh, thanks.
Because I've just seen so many people using them, and they always sound great. I'll see people's clips or even their recordings where they've used them.
Oh, thanks.
And
man.
I've been itching for a set of them. I've even
We're
looked
gonna
before.
hook you up. Yeah, we've
Oh, I
always been
can't
sold
wait.
out. Yeah, we have Amish people making them. So those of you that don't know,
Nice.
I have and it isn't something that I think a lot of the jazz community would embrace because the open tones are what's the money in the jazz scene. So massive respect there. But if people are playing other types of music. Peter Erskine came to us and was really excited about what we had. He's one of our first people that said a couple of nice things on our behalf. And basically what we do is we have some thick stainless steel wire gauge that's in a circle, and we sew one version that's got it like basically an 1.125" ring around it. And if you put it on top of the tom, it lets a nice warm note out, but it cuts out a lot of the high end that might be EQ'd out. And a lot of drummers that are doing, more backbeat stuff are taping up their drums a little bit to tame the sound down for the studio. One of the things I found getting in the studio and trying to do other stuff is that while we all love open drum sounds and Bonham and stuff, a lot of sounds are tighter. They want a tighter sound. And so rather than taping up your drums, I came up with these cloth ring things, originally just bending a hanger.
Yeah, we got to stock some of these.
They're great.
We'll order a bunch.
They're great. And then I just got a pillowcase and just basically stapled just a fabric ring around it just to get, because my floor tom just was too, well, I couldn't get it to sound right. I didn't want to put tape on it because sometimes you do want that awesome open sound.
Yeah.
So then
that's why I use the wallet.
Right.
Wallet on, wallet off. So this is
it was basically just the concept of a T-towel, except it nests on top of the head inside.
Right. And T-towel, you should say that's the Ringo thing.
What Ringo did. If any of you saw Get Back, you noticed that he put T-towels on most, if not all, of his drums, and just to get that classic sound. And then you'd hear a tradition of dampened drums with a lot of records, but more like in the funk or the reggae or certain singer-songwriters, or now a lot of the rock or indie rock bands want more of a sound. And so these are basically just cloth drum covers, either that fully cover a drum in cloth, but yet it's thinner cloth, so it lets a lot of the transients out that you'd want. So at first it was just me when I'd play in a theater, a seated venue, and it was just really boomy. They would save me. Or then when you get in the studio and there's someone like you that's got really nice mics and preamps and stuff, and there's harmonic instruments and there's a song and they don't want a ringy drum, closed mic. They just run out, immediately start taping it up. You put these pieces of cloth on and it just dampens it and gives it a classic sound. So we're real happy to have a lot of great bands.
So you got a website where people can go to purchase these?
Yeah, www.rootseq.com.
Put up some links.
Yeah, and it's great. And hopefully they'll get to cruise into your store. You've been nice enough to sell them in the past, and thank you for that.
We had a bunch in New York, I think.
Yeah.
And do you have a bass drum version, or is it just on the snare
We don't.
and tom?
And people have used them on a bass drum and really liked them. But,
okay.
But I just figure there's so many. The pillow's so great if that's the sound you're after, or a piece of...
Yeah, I just use like a random pillow.
A T-shirt or the felt strip is so great. We just thought that's already been covered by so many people, but
we have
just
an official
an
Maxwell drums pillow.
That's true.
It's in the closet.
I want one. I'll sleep on it.
Though it's just a random pillow. I don't know where it came from. I think I found it in a bass drum.
Yeah, I think it came to us in a drum set.
I have found the most incredible kind of spectacular array of different blankets inside of bass drums.
Oh yeah, you must, huh?
I could open up like a vintage blanket store. Yeah, just because of all the blankets I've taken out of bass drums over the years.
It's incredible.
Some of them I brought home and I washed them and I used them.
Found inside of people's drums sometimes is like, I can't believe that people use this for muffling, but they'll use anything they can get their hands on.
Yeah, there's pretty nice ones. Yeah.
The one thing
kind of a funny thing about working in the drum shop.
Oh yeah.
The one thing that I love about the RootsEQ is I've always used like those plastic rings when I'm trying to achieve that sound. They buzz every single time.
Yeah.
And
Some
so
of
the
them,
RootsEQ,
we saw problems like that, or if you take them off and you stow them, they get bent, and once they're bent, you can't really use them.
Sure.
The sound. If you're looking for a dampened sound, there's so many great options right now. The market, it's a popular thing right now. A lot of great companies are doing it. This is just one version of it, where it's muslin, it's cloth, or we do one in chamois.
We should get like a couple of the different types, because we're going to do a bunch of videos pretty soon that are going to have just different types of muffling, and then we can have one of these.
Sure, we'd love to help in any way, and it's just another thing. I think having some stuff that a working drummer can use, and the price point is reasonable.
Yeah.
Where it's not going to break the bank, and it'll just they can show up at a gig and have fun. It's been a great pursuit. So
Yeah, with the snare drum, does it give that kind of? It's almost like a gated sound. Like it makes it so it doesn't ring out too bad.
exactly. So depending on if you're using a solid cover or an O-ring, or we make an even lighter flappy product, O-ring that's called flappy.
Right.
It's depending how much of the note you want to come up, but it really is almost like if you had a thinner T-shirt draped on the snare,
Right.
which a producer makes you do. I've made entire records with T-shirts on.
Sure.
It's a
Not
little that
surprised.
fabric is too heavy. It's too heavy.
Okay. Yeah.
So muslin's a lighter fabric, and it with the steel ring on the outside and the way it's stitched, it nests really perfectly. Again, it was really cool to see Steve Ferroni. I mean, he's one of my favorite. Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
He's one
Absolutely.
of my favorite pocket players. I mean, Average White Band and Duran Duran.
Has he bought stuff from us before?
Not that I know of.
Maybe.
But
He
maybe.
plays vintage stuff too. Anyway, he was.
I think he has. I think my dad talked about him at one point, but
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, if you're into like soul
I don't know
or funk
personally,
music,
but-
he's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was really supportive. Like a guy like that, just who's a pocket player, basically saying, "My engineer was so happy we used these," and then
Yeah, because the engineer wants a really clean sound a lot
Yeah.
of the times, because then he can add anything he wants later.
correct.
So that's
Correct.
That's why. And then people who, if you want to be like fundamentalist about your drumming tone, it's like, okay, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but that's not always if you want to say like I have like the drum must be completely open.
Yeah.
Then that works good in a certain situation. But if he's trying to even like the what do they call it when something rings unexpectedly? Sympathetic vibration. The
There's that,
sympathetic
yeah.
vibration of your snares while you're playing the other drums.
Well, that's a problem.
completely messes up a recording. If you muffle it a little bit, it can help that a little. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go into different locations, and the sound is going to be different. And sometimes but then you maybe want to access a more wide open song on another. You might want a whole other sound on another song. So
Yeah.
when I'm playing live, I'll literally some stuff I'm using mallets. I need a wide open sound. I'm playing brushes. I just pop them off and play mallets and use brushes. So
Right on. Oh, you do brushes, yeah.
I love
That's-
brushes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a dying art. I don't know. Maybe it's coming back a little bit though. Regal tip. What's the deal with Regal tip? What kind of brushes do you use?
Well, I'm a Vader artist, but
So Vader. Okay.
Vader,
Well,
Nice.
yeah. We have some. Yeah, Vader makes great stuff. We have some ProMark ones and Vader ones. We stock
Got
everything.
some Vader, yeah.
Regal tip apparently is no more.
Oh, they're done.
I don't know this. I don't know this
Oh,
for sure,
no,
but
that's so sad.
as far as I know, and I've used Regal Tip sticks and brushes for the last 10 years.
Oh, they're
So
fantastic. Oh, that's too.
So I'm just gonna
Oh no.
move to Vic
Harris,
Firth, and
A
I've
really
always liked
unique
Vic
stick
Firth,
company.
Vic Firth's great.
I actually think
Shout
I
out to
might-
Joe Testa. Yeah.
I think I might be better with the 7As. I was talking about this the other day. I think shorter sticks are better for singles, and then
Yeah.
longer sticks are better for like press rolls.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'm finding. It's just the way they're weighted.
Wow.
I just switched to Vader not long ago because of their sugar maple selection is fantastic, and
Oh,
I really
yeah.
love the sugar maple stuff, and so I've been diving into their sticks lately.
Vader's
I like
great.
Vader.
And they make these monster brushes especially if
For the cajon, right?
For the cajon, or even on a drum,
Yeah.
it sounds great. So there's all the companies have such cool stuff,
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
not lacking in anything.
Sure.
Yeah. There's the Vic Firth brushes. They have a purple handle, the ones that feel like the old Regal Tip ones.
A
So
little bit of attack to them.
yeah,
Yeah.
they feel. I like them, but the purple handle is a little weird. What if it doesn't match with my drum set?
I know, right? Gives me the fear.
Don't match mine.
I like purple, but what if it clashes with my tie? Then what am I gonna do?
Aw. You got to account for the style.
For sure. But yeah, so no, you got any more questions about like kind of what you're up to these days? Like you can even talk a little bit
Oh yeah,
about
no,
what you're
yeah.
doing right now, because
Cool.
this will go out when do you want us to put it out? Maybe 2 weeks, something
Whenever
like
you
that?
want, man. Whenever you want.
Probably 2 weeks ish. That's how long
yeah,
it takes.
whatever
So
you want.
Any shows coming up, you should
Oh,
tell
cool.
people about it. They can come see you.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, just to wrap up, I'm on tour right now, and sadly we've had a layover in Chicago because our singer contracted COVID, and so he had to quarantine in New York. But we're doing a gig tomorrow in Chicago, and we're on a tour supporting another Jack Johnson record called Meet the Moonlight. He made a nice record. It's great, and
Sadly for you guys, but you were able to come here to do this.
I know,
so.
right? Yeah,
For us, it was.
It's been a beautiful stop. And then
He's doing okay though, and yeah,
he's fine.
You guys
Yeah,
are ready
that's
to
good. Yeah, he's healthy. And
ready to make some more tunes, make some more music. Yeah.
there it is. And then yeah, I go back and forth. I'll be in LA gigging and playing and
Nice.
recording. I've got a studio at my house. It's not nearly as dialed as your guys' studio, but
Get a tape machine.
I'm getting a tape machine.
If you get a
You're
tape machine, you'll
respect, and it'll cover all the grounds. So
doesn't even have to be an expensive one. You can even record something totally digitally and bounce it through the tape. You can do that. I wouldn't recommend it. It's
Right.
better to record straight to tape, but
straight to tape, and then
You
if
can
you're
do
gonna
that,
bounce, maybe bounce once you record to the tape, bounce that to Pro Tools if you got to chop it up. Or
yeah, if it originally goes to tape,
Right.
that gives you the real quality. Because
Right.
if digital is good at anything, digital is good at reproducing exactly what it hears,
Right.
and that's what tape actually makes what it hears sound better.
I agree.
That's the weird
there's
thing.
a vibe. Yeah, there's a vibe. We've done a couple records in tape, and
It's better to me. I mean, technically, like my dog can probably hear things in the digital music that aren't there because dogs have like a higher.
Oh yeah.
But about 18 kilohertz. That's where my and that's where the roll off. The roll off is part of the tape. Naturally has like it's almost like an EQ curve. Those extreme highs, they just get really mellow.
It's very
Extreme lows too.
subjective to the application. that it's
Clean
used
bass too. Tape does this thing where it actually takes out some of the subwoofer.
Oh wow.
It's I think a lot of the times people mix music nowadays with way too much bass. I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Like
No, it's pretty crazy.
it's gotten out of hand. They've gone too far.
Yeah.
You want bass, but I think clean bass sometimes means a little less bass. I know when I record a lot of jazz stuff, and especially in jazz, you want the bass to be.
Sure. Awesome.
But yeah, so I think we hit most of the bases.
Cool.
Is
We really
there
did.
anything else you wanted
That's
to?
it, man. It's an honor to be here. I love the podcast, and I'm just psyched to get to be at the shop.
Yeah,
Thanks, you guys.
It's been
Thank
great
you, Adam.
fun. You still up for a sandwich?
Yep. Let's
Yeah.
do it. Awesome.
Well, yeah,
Always.
everybody, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Good deal.